There's two white ginger.
Yo, sit next to
How many other types of ginger?
You don't have to be white to be ginger.
You don't.
Yeah, I know a black ginger person.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Speaking of, the live stream is now on.
That's how we start the round, you know?
Fuck.
Alright. Yep, here we go.
Is everybody not ready?
We are good.
You good? Jack, you good?
Go for it.
All right. The resolution's call to understand surveillance as organizations observing people who faces the violence of racializing surveillance or the technologies of social control that rose with colonial expansion and transatlantic slavery to find what is in or out of place. Racialized surveillance goes far beyond data, institutions, or executive power. It's inscribed in the visual logic of surveillance to maintain a racially saturated field of visibility. It locks blackness into a rigid grid of representational possibilities, i.e. into static, legible scripts. In response, we endorse a black epistemology of dark surveillance, a practice of black performative practices and creative acts for which contend with anti-black surveillance, escape enslavement, and facilitate black survival. That's Brown 15. Racializing surveillance is a technology of social control where surveillance practices, policies, and performance concern the production norms pertaining to race and exercise power to find what is in or out of place, how things get ordered racially by way of surveillance events on space and time, all strategies that first accompanied European colonial expansion, transatlantic slavery, surveillance of the racialized today, seeing eyes, white flows, personal data, and the process of risk assessment is then profiled, circulating trade within and between databases. Such data is often marked by race, high impact surveillance, the oversight being served meaning from above, and the root word bay, instead of deriving from bay, taking meaning watching, surveillance and surveillance following the broad concept of surveillance, a form of watching man, situated surveillance, is organization of observing people, surveillance, attacks of preserving recording by an entity, not a position of power. The king or emperor should have had more power than surveillance data. I want to make a link here between racially saturated field of visibility and the picture-taking racial gaze that fixes and frames the black subject within rigid, limited grid of representational possibilities. These are ways of seeing and conceptualizing blackness and impose limitations practically so in spaces that are shaped for whiteness. Even the mere presence of blackness gets coded as criminal within racially saturated field of visibility. Such police violence is not read as violence. In slavery state and stereos deputized through white supremacy, I apprehend any fugitive who escape from bondage, making a cumulative white gaze that functions as totalizing surveillance. I use dark surveillance as a way to situate taxes employed and render oneself out of sight. Black dark surveillance is an imaginative place in which mobilize a critique of racializing surveillance, a critique that takes form in an anti-surveillance, counter surveillance, and other freedom practices. Dark surveillance that plots imaginaries that are oppositional and hopeful and for another way of being. Dark surveillance is a side black epistemology contending with anti-black surveillance where tools of surveillance were appropriated, co-opted, repurposed, and challenged in order to facilitate survival and escape. This might sound like spirituals or an 1851 handbill that advised colored people to keep a sharp lookout for kidnappers. Dark surveillance is not strictly enacted by those who fall in the category of blackness. Surveillance was all-encompassing. This sweeping order did not, of course, preclude escapes and other forms of resistance. Oral histories reveal sociology, slavery, escape, and freedom. To detail black performative practices and creative acts function as surveillance acts. They were employed by people as a way to escape and resistance. Saying dark surveillance speaks not only to observing those in authority, but also a keen use of the keen experiential insight of surveillance in order to resist it. Dark surveillance is also reading facts or examining surveillance that allows questioning about certain surveillance technology installed during slavery to monitor and track blackness and property and anticipate the contemporary surveillance of racialized subjects. And racially saturated fields of surveillance uniquely target black women. Corinne Gaines was supposed to be receiving a simple bench warrant for a traffic stop. Her life and death at the hands of the militarized anti-black police force is just one example of the impact of racialized state surveillance facilitated by surveillance and capture. The surveillance of black women should be the entry point to guide the development of interpretive framework and methodology for surveillance. That's Brown 17. Corinne Gaines was shot and killed by officers at an apartment complex. Her Instagram page is still up with it. Many posts in reaction with police violence against black people and black communities. The one of her last Instagram post from the day of the stand-up with the police, she asked her 5-year-old son, what the people that the police are trying to do. The answer, they're trying to kill us. Hashtag Corinne Gaines trending along with hashtag say your name, conscious raising movement, recognize gender specificity, racialized state violence and surveillance. I begin with Corinne Gaines as what it could be one of many entry points to attempt to raise and effective surveillance within particular communities. Gaines' life and her death point to the absolute necessities, intersectionality, and interpretive framework and methodology in the state study of surveillance. Such an approach should guide surveillance studies in the field of to make critical interventions to research and thinking on surveillance in society, applying the concept of racialization, seeing beauty names, historical formation, pseudo-scientific discourse, the link blackness, criminality, encoding contemporary notion of visual evidence as objective.
Here is where they fail us. An intersection of eyes and bullets, a child who buries a mother, an intersection of a misdemeanor and an invasion. Here is an intersection of being seen only by bullets and being seen as a bullet. Here is where they fail us.
The 1AC wanders to recover lost privacy, a locale where black women might roam without surveillance, out of harm's way. We affirm the fleeting possibility of hope beyond the push and pull of society's legible, readable, knowable scripting and surveillance of blackness and black women. Affirm the possibility of black women to wander and resist state surveillance, to resist enclosure, to exert kinetic agency, to trouble state, and to thrive beyond discursive, epistemological, and empirical, then to interrupt the homicidal eradication of blackness made possible by legibility. The 1AC will be surveilled and policed, but black feminist performances of wandering may see the trains of surveillance and legibility through the private emulations of the spirit and unbounded affirmation of black freedom. That's Survey Act 14. The bus ride transpired quietly. During that ride, the Ursa wanders to recover lost privacy, and within a grapple in the landscape that cannot be encouraged to look outward, she might roam without surveillance out of harm's way. Between private pain and public trespass, she is subject to racial saviors, enduring whims and confining trips. Against these competing scripts, Ursa's yearning for anonymous and solitary comportment takes form, fleeting just a philosophical possibility hovering in the opaque terrain next to the visible world. There's on the bus. Ursa finally achieves some privacy, eradication, water, dream without interruption, imagine those abilities of her own life beyond the push and pull of other people's memories, other people's desires, wandering, daydreaming, mental, rhetorical ramblings, offer new pathways or enactments. No black female philosophical desire is importance, not contingent on its interpretation within performance. So I struggle with discipline, sentences, privilege, measurable acts over unseen drifts and dreams. What would mean to resist epistemological urgency of the heart of readability, no ability. What is probable about wandering is its potential risks and closures, enunciation, articulation, textuality, but also enactment that signals refusal of all three qualities. What is state surveillance, it's oddly replicated, bringing the body's movement. What is the black performance, feminism, and critical theory advanced the notion that trains the body movement beyond the discursive, epistemological, and empirical, while also black men who enjoyed late night walks refused to disclose identity to authorities. Dawson was arrested because of the exercise of kinetic energy was discursively troubling to the state and doing commensurate with racialized logics of idealized moving subject and alignment. Logical subjectivity continue to hold powerful sway. Black movement is read as a destructive philosophical problem to be solved, as opposed to that which resolves philosophical problems. We need a new way to think about wandering as a philosophical performance, not contingent on its availability to discourse or individual agency. These elusive philosophical worlds of the defining rhetoric subjectivity held over from the Enlightenment theories of normative subject trying to continue to shape at the intersection of race, sexuality, and logic with legibly rational comportment. State criminalization of black walkers resonates with the post-Enlightenment configuration of people of color guided by an illegitimate, unlawful outside danger was often resolved through the homicidal eradication of its objects. We have lived in the millennium of man in the last 500 years. The slave plantation was an essential part of the entire mechanism of working its way out. African slaves and Americans and their descendants, through their very political, economic, racial, sexual, and ontological inscription of chattel according to Spiller's experience on a mental violation of being radically severed from their motive will slaves were perceived as the essence of stillness. Trips into undisclosed locales, refuse to pull someone else's secure. This not sensationalist movements remain unpoliced or unscripted, cause wandering exceeds the terrains of visible and physical because it's not possible to know. Let's just say the private ambulation spirit, anti-wandering acts, laws and acts don't spell the end of black freedom. Black artists and activists, philosophers have expanded black wandering, genetic meaning, and philosophical potential. Black feminists have been to the forefront of theorizing the limits of the Enlightenment by defamiliarizing epistemological processes, not conceptually naming, then immobilizing the movements of black women. And the world is rooted in anti-black violence and an ongoing contempt to confine blackness to a position of ontological destitution. In response, the 1AC is an anti-episteme, a thought which welcomes its own undoing. We affirm the possibility of an ethereal blackness that experimentalizes being by wandering beyond the world as we know towards fugitive socialities, a world beyond black surveillance and legibility. That's Carter Schmidt, Next 16. Blackness experimentalizes being what virtues the tremulous meaning rather this world's anti-black violence that what cannot be killed, the either black and conditional possibility of those worlds that intoxifies and fortifies what keeps homogeneity alive. Blackness and femaleness experience their ontological condition only is fulfilling man's end, but this life human capacity also spells the end of man's world. Blackness always exceeds the expropriative violences of the personal life, and even as a state with its size black creativities and death, blackness moves alongside the wounded black flesh as a safe house to the harbor at the world's end. Blackness very deregulatedness always enabled and ended the world as we know it, capacity for joy beyond the post-Enlightenment concern points on the theory of blackness that experimentalizes being the world by wandering beyond the world as we know it. You would have thought welcome to someone doing creativity is unhinged from productions, self-saying, sovereign aspirations of pure. This movement experimentalizes black light that sees without being seen, interrupting spatio-temporality with the assertion being in otherwise knowledge. Its anti-epistemology emerges out of the future socialities engendered by the queer experiences of state legibility. And our affirmation of the black wanderer exceeds discourse in the totalizing force of legibility prescribed by liberalism enacted through surveillance. Reading the one he sees a trespass of enactment that calls to imagine humanity otherwise by connecting black female subject and performance to refuse ontological readability. That's Nolan 17. Imagine humanity otherwise is ongoing within black studies, wandering, registration, innovative meditation, political ratio, connecting black feminist performance framework. She contemplates the conditions under where black female subject and philosophical study might be disaggregated from Enlightenment logics, where we is concerned with many possible conditions from New World. Servant act examines the mode of political disengagement. The figure of black wanderer accounts for roaming that represents the possibility of refusing the close analysis, script the ontological unreadability, the trespass and enactments, holds promise of running oneself legible, facilitates polarizing impulses of liberal discourse and internal wandering, represents projection of ontological codification, wandering imagines the external and internal kinesis as avenues for simultaneously seeking discourses and combating alienation of readability has long served the prerogatives of racist, sexism, class epistemology, and the resistance to verifiability made well. Represents the possibility of philosophical abundance. Legibility itself constitutes major side of crisis. Resistance to understanding rather than bodily performance may represent the ground of radical politics. Process.
Ready?
Yeah.
What is the 1AC's unconditional change from the status quo?
What is the 1AC's Where did this discussion of unconditionality come from?
What will you advocate?
What do we advocate?
Yes.
We advocate for wandering.
Yeah,
and
so
dark surveillance as a counter method.
your first Servant Act card talks about wandering, sort of describes it, like, you know, if there's a praxis to it.
I'm sorry, was there a question?
Yeah, what's the praxis to wandering?
What's the praxis to wandering?
Yeah.
There's no given set of praxis.
Give me a few
Like, hey,
examples.
black women, you need to do it this way. We do give the example, however, of Ursa Corregidora, who was riding on a bus from different locales. She publicly went onto a bus, but she had private kinds of ambulations. The evidence describes it, private kinds of thoughts and actions, and she was in a position of being of seeing without being seen. She had a moment of temporary relief. Our evidence argues that kind of.
So the AF attempts to create more moments of temporary relief from surveillance?
Opening up a discussion and enabling black women to use counter-surveillance
Your first
practices.
brown piece of evidence says that we need to create black epistemologies to counteract anti-black surveillance. It talks about literally shifting surveillance studies. I guess I have two questions about that. One, how do you create this epistemological shift within debate?
Sure. The critique of surveillance studies is the overt focus on technology as being that which is surveillance and not paying enough attention to the social norms that are inscribed within debate. You can see this in a plethora of ways, from asking black female debaters, hey, where are you going? What did you do?
Well, no. My question is, how does debate shift those epistemologies that Brown says needs to be shifted?
How does debate, if you mean the
Like your Brown
process-
literally says we need to change surveillance studies the way they happen. My question is, what about voting AF, or what about this debate does that?
it's an intervention into the kind of surveillance studies that are being read within debate.
Okay.
That's trying to assume that
That makes
there
no
is no
sense to me.
surveillance kind of talk.
I have a second question relating to that Brown card. What does it do to rupture literal racialized NSA surveillance that exists in the status quo, such
That
as the
literal-
shooting of foreign gains?
So that literal kinds of violence
Yeah.
is inevitable. That's the
Just
ultimate
totally
claim.
inevitable.
Yes, surveillance practices
Absolutely nothing we can do.
about the material kinds of forces, the
Yeah.
material kind of use of surveillance practices is inevitable because of the kinds of social, because of the social justifications behind them.
That makes
That's-
some sense to me. I have one last
Okay.
question. So your Carter and Cervenak evidence says that blackness and femaleness experiences their ontological position to fill the ends of man.
Yes.
What is that ontological position?
So this is not ontology as in Wilderson,
Yeah, I got
because
that.
the imposition of rather it's saying that black people themselves
Mhm.
have been given this kind of script to follow by man to fill in certain norms. That's the whole discussion of legibility. Basically what it means is that black people stop fulfilling man's end by stop obeying these kinds of stereotypes, these scripts,
Okay,
these
gotcha.
roles that are laid out for them.
It'll be fitting in the case.
3 of them, yes.
Farm bill on the ball.
Middle.
You read a different part of the T farm bill, that's fine.
No.
Well, y'all got it up?
Yes.
Jack, you good?
You got it?
I do have it, thank you.
First off, topicality interpretation debate is again requires the AF to defend the U.S. FDA restrictions on the authority of the executive. One of the topic areas resolved means legislation departure, and one of formal statement of decision as by legislature resolve comes to the adoption of resolutions about legislative bodies. Federal government means the national government, not the states or localities. Black children running on a national government that exercises some degree of control over smaller political units. Should is mandatory, need to, non should is usually express duty or obligation. The word committee says the duty and obligation cannot be misunderstood. Should is synonymous with the word must. Restriction is a prohibition. North Carolina 11 the term. Restriction shall mean a prohibitive regulation. Executive power means Article 2 of the Constitution core. Now also 118 executive power to Article 2 as the duties of the executive branch except the president's power. Article 2 of the Constitution contains a vested clause that is short committed interpreted meaning that the president's head of the executive branch would die. He is still subject to limits within that branch. Vote negative for predictable limits. There are two impacts of this. First is procedural fairness. Post facto, topic changes alter the balance of preparation, but structure favors the affirmative because they speak last and use permutations, which is critical to engage a well-prepared opponent. This matters in the context of literature-based procedurally limited topics facilitate second-level argument development and force debaters to consider a superposition of methods to address a singular issue. Open topics encourage linear thinking, prevent meaningful engagement. Goes 15.
The explosion of publication creates too many positions, too many arguments, it has become impossible to read everything. It says serious consequences of proliferation of security studies, transition studies, game studies, sim ops studies, horror studies, while each of them is valuable academic screen and endlessly. Self-referential close system of citations and normally predictable circulation to references. One is psychic research, cyber research, any investigation like no open up and entire research debates moving for the time and energy. One tends to select sources, decoding, understanding, research, the conversation with difference. One reads selectively, finding those ideas that are already in line with one assumes already knows complexity goes at the door. Second is switch sides debate. It enables self-reflective openness that enables idea cultivation and opinion shifting without normative consensus on procedural terms of debate that requires switch side deliberation. Dogmatism becomes inevitable. Strain in Ivan 17. Deliberation pushes people to be open. Deliberation induces individuals to reflect on their preferences and become amenable to changing. A lot of persuasion participants are instructed to put themselves in other shoes. This change requires being open to other alternatives and perspectives. Expressive procedural know that they should have an open line of conversation. Different views. Openness means that somebody able to take into account other perspectives, even shifting opinions based on reasons. Openness does not, however, require agreement. People are expected to engage ideas but not to agree on all terms or express unity when discussing difficult issues. It is important to focus both on unity and different participants may still hold different views on policy to do best. In epistemic condition, openness does not require consistency of beliefs between multiple agents with a group that strong value-based funds or goals opposed by people without a shared value-based discussions. Only dogmatic assertions of positions, opinions seems to be correlated to openness. Rather, people's perspective deliberation needs new enlightened judgment of people reform their perspectives. The result of deliberation, the stronger individuals' opinions, the less likely that they are willing to relax their opinion and be open. Next off is cap. The anti-power politics are ineffective, reinforcing neoliberalism. Grade 18. The radical left is given away to a fractious policy of precludes integrated activity, sacrifices to action, lack cohesive and long-term strategy. Radical left is rejecting collective will by developing single encompassing strategy based on universal principle disengagement from the state, sees political space and operational training to ruling castes. Radicals left can only make radical best outside of the state. There are parallels between anti-power politics and neoliberal research in the public institutions that inherently competent because the left engages in direct refusal will be access. We have to attacks in the welfare state, redistributive measures and social programs. Anti-power politics proven to be unable to challenge capitalism from outside of the state. There are insurmountable practical problems that attempt to telling the world without taking power. They will face constant state repression. They cannot mobilize resources necessary, long-term cultivation, democratic capacity to prevent major societal disintegration, not to use it as an instrument, it's an encounter, it as an obstacle. Now, their analysis of anti-blackness is a vehicle for affirmation, is a form of neoliberal ressentiment that obscures labor, alienation. Sheet 18. Brown critiques of politics and suffering using resentment to argue that people are bound to their oppression. Resentment is a triumph for the weak is the weak labor. Sure words every person into a particular sphere influence upon them from which they cannot expect to receive liberation on the basis of identity, reifies and reforms of distribution, identity, politics, and manifestation of class resentment, whereby that alienation, cosmic capitalism becomes depoliticized and displaced on a market assertion of itself. Affirmation brings up powerlessness, turn to suffering is a function of neoliberalism, destroy the material basis for collective existence by defining identity through psychic suffering. The society can be marketed as through discourse to self-reliance, which commodify the self-needs discourse to focus on individual lived experience, fighting symptoms and prioritize over systemic analysis. Now capitalism makes extinction inevitable through escalating ecological catastrophe and creates violence along both racial and gendered lines. Confronting it requires a reclamation of the state, not a rejection of it. Part 15. After 2015, maybe all overriding no such extinction, pollution, and increasing inequity, the earth could become inhospitable. The neoliberal framework imposes a racist, sexist, privileged, political subject. If this situation continues, predictions for future life on earth are catastrophic. The displacement is an act of violence that conceals a deeper structure of violence. And global capitalism critically engaging with the structures is necessary for shepherding, creating emancipatory solutions, and engaging new political subjectivities, energies, and affects to be redirected away from consumption and find investment in the emancipatory outcomes. A more collaborative and equitable government structure might emerge from a transversal operational course currently reduced to the gates of capitalism have and have this only true for politics, nor the emancipatory promise of political change is only inevitable as long as the neoliberal description of all spaces all times remains closely critiqued. Now the alternative to theorize through Marxist materialism. This practice returns conceptualist tools long central to American black radical traditions that's necessary for resistance, for example, 15. The first textbooks in AS were written by Marxist scholars. Marxism are integral parts of their get American history and culture, material psychology, system materiality over consciousness, and materials, epistemology, positive reality, noble and approximates reality, and materials philosophy presupposes that the social world is satisfied an ontology of which class relations form the ground for understanding social processes and current cultural studies form a separation between cultural studies and social relations and production of the black working class become lost in temporary black theory. Has a clear class as all that exists in a matrix of domination of black working class must be the forefront of black studies. This would discard notions such as human capital nihilism. The question is not politics or no politics, rather it is which politics, slavery, colonialism, imperialism are part and parcel of capitalism. Embracing an ethno-philosophy which is anti-European is as fruitful as masturbation. Scholarship revealed the historical legacy of black work emulsions. He played through Clarkson often the great railway strike of 1877. Lucy Parsons and Fitching given the Haymark Center. Struggle heroic efforts of black sharecroppers, tenant farmers, and agricultural laborers to organize black organization. Philip Randolph's tireless effect to the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, steadfast leadership of Belmont Hopkins and Vernon Smith in 1947. Then the strike of the Reynolds Tobacco Company, black postal workers like people in Morgan. Many of these activists were socialists, quite a few were Marxist-Leninists in the ideological outlook of black working class bring up. Like their class struggle, the capitalist strive for surplus, the foundation for African American life and culture in the aftermath of the murders of Trayvon Martin, Michael Boyd, Ayanna Smith, Ayanna Jones, Yvette Smith, Tokia Boyd, and Eric Garner. Black working people are not silently standing by words of capital confront them in the streets. The Summit Point is lost on black critics of Marxism. During the last 90 years, AS has demonstrated that working class is now one-dimensional, exclusively composed of white people. The working class is multinational in nature and acts offers a counterplay. Text, the United States federal government should end all targeted and individual surveillance on black individuals, redirect all government bulk surveillance programs towards surveillance of non-black individuals, minimize and delete all collected information not about white individuals, lower the evidentiary standard for arresting non-black terrorists, and make any violent act by non-black individuals that are illegal and punishable. The affirmative wrongly perceives that organizational surveillance can only be used to target minority groups. On the contrary, surveillance is needed to target white Americans on the basis of their race and color, barrier, and 15. State violence against black people and racist vigilante attacks are part of this country's legacy and foundation. Black communities that are suffering to black violence with terrorism, anti-black racism. There's been a monopoly on who has a right to feel safe and be safe. When a conversation about policing state power and anti-black racism focus on tweaks say this policy, meanwhile the state spies on black communities rather than using the surveillance mechanism to prevent racist vigilante attacks and collecting tangible evidence of racism via widespread surveillance is crucial to confront white terrorism. Ground 15. Evidence proving race and racism are meaningful and increasingly easy to find the facts that serve that white people are acting routinely to harm, demean, and damage black and brown people's everyday ways, making everyday choices that lock in and protect white privilege. Should be read as a call to action. Record the discord display your co-workers and police officers should record friends talking about indigeneities and microaggressions. Record Uncle Roy talking about the good old days. Record routine traffic black us post videos posting will confirm that race and racism matter. Will demonstrate that white privilege is real. Will provide evidence that black and brown people are experiencing the everyday world in a way similar to whites. Imagine if the only evidence of racism and practice stories that people of color tell, few whites would be moved to action, but now we can capture racist behavior and its impact on society. High definition has been a revelation to many whites, and it is good because there can be no revolution without revelation. We must document the significance of race and racism before we can arrest and make a routine to collect evidence that allows us to address it. Otherwise, we can bound to run in circles debating about whether a problem exists. While things will get worse, next go to case. You should refuse any prior orientations toward worldviews that place ontology before existence. Progress is possible, according to 19. Addressing the problem in terms of bad faith exemplars would immediately seek to find themselves bad faith in terms of how to themselves to shifting orientation of critique, criticize methods of being implicit in reality to constructed relationships before to placing essence before existence and operating race away from other dimensions of reality towards the subject, adding in the imposition of relationality on a relational subject. We don't see race, gender, class, and sexual orientation to exemplify all these all the time in different ways. Race emerges in reality over the past now. For 100 years, race requires denying the humanity of other groups through regimes of power and then denying the ascription of human beings within they would first have identified as human beings. People are not always categorized under race. The conception of form dehumanization dependent on particular idea of human beings that work in that one can exist without relations with others requires model of self and self-sustaining substances is dominated. Your model thought commitment to the elimination of relations like that. Contradiction of important elements of studies such as communicability, evidence associated human force the analysis may not back away the world with appear to be more closer than there's no human being really. Any of these things are project making people into one thing, the achievement is another question. Racism is a function of equal power and alpha or study power instead of an assertion of its manifestations. Ontological afro-pessimism blackness, ontological which as a self-contained concept, the historical emergence of blackness repeats that there is a logical paradox and in blackness one must be in relation to a negative negative we must have specific political strategies, which means the affirmative is unable to solve any of the harms that one says. So it's finding 12 military law, logistics about racism, sexism, capitalism, and neoliberalism. What I've heard in discussion that could be indifference in military logic is horrible, but saying it doesn't go very far compared with the analysis and the next box saying you're justifying that just means the entire points about the violence of the war machine and intermediate disorder them. Your sole strategies to be ideological critique, there have been critiques about changing too much critique is right, but fails to reach the people. There are other causal factors. Terror, realize no three components mapping assemblage, literal deconstructing, changing to a sort of order that involves intervening the material knowledge, terror formation for the actors to be something more of a critic. We need good maps so we can block the right and engage in effective terror formation. What's up?
Not much.
Can I get the text of
before we start?
the thing, the counter plan?
It's in there.
The whole thing?
No. Can you say it? Because there's a specific part I didn't hear you quite say. I want to make sure that you said the entire thing. Can you say it?
Can I say the counterplan text?
Yeah.
Sure. The United States federal government should end all targeted and individual surveillance on black individuals, redirect all government bulk surveillance programs towards the surveillance of non-black individuals, minimize and delete all collected information not about white individuals, lower the evidentiary standard for arresting non-black terrorists, and make any violent act by non-black individuals illegal and punishable.
Okay, so no by death.
I'm
It's literally no.
It's in the counterplan text. That's fine. So what is the legal definition of black after the counterplan?
It uses census data.
Uses census data,
Yeah.
so everybody that checked off black on the census
Yeah.
is on this. All right, great. So
Which is really important because only people who buy into whiteness would identify as white.
only people who buy into whiteness.
Yeah, who want to claim privilege
So,
based on whiteness.
What about Rachel Dolezal?
What about Rachel
Will
Dolezal?
she be classified as black? If she
I don't know
checks
what
off
she checks
black,
on the census.
So if she checks off the black box on the census, she is included.
The pieces
She's
of
not
evidence we've
included.
read impact evidence about are literal white nationalists. We think surveillance on them is the critical
Yeah, but that's
ones
not what the
because that's
counterplan
what's.
text says.
What do you?
Why does it matter if Rachel Dolezal gets surveilled or not?
That's not what our impact evidence is written about.
Okay.
We claim to solve for white nationalism and white terrorism.
Okay, so great.
Is your argument that
So,
Rachel Dolezal claimed?
I'm moving on to my next question.
Okay.
So, I'm guessing y'all didn't come on to the Mayflower, right? And I didn't either, right? There are a lot of immigrants in the United States who who are accused of committing violent acts. Would they be subject to increased surveillance and punishments as well?
Non-black individuals would be surveilled, yes.
What qualifies as a violent act?
What qualifies as a violent act?
Yes, or
Our
actually,
evidence is
there's a better
specifically
question.
speaking
Is
to
this done through the
terrorism.
courts or the Congress?
Sorry?
Is this done through courts or the Congress?
The United States federal government.
Is this for competition reason? Like what?
What are you talking about?
Just answer the question. Is it going through the
We're
courts
gonna
or
defend the
Congress?
USFG.
So when
That's
it's
nice.
prosecuted, it goes down to the courts, right?
Yes,
The-
courts enforce
do they
laws in the
change-
United States.
Do they change their practices when convicting these crimes? Because you do
We
make,
changed the evidentiary standard. That's
you
part
change
of
the evidentiary standard. Okay, so what court case do you use to make that change?
Court case do we use? We fiat a test case.
What test case?
We fiat the creation of a test case. We fiat the litigation of
Fiat.
that. It's like the remains for a courts act or a courts counterplan. It's the same deal.
Okay. If we don't make a perm or a no-link argument, will you go for this?
It's
It's
conditional.
conditional, yeah.
It's conditional? All
We
right.
can kick it if we want.
So, your evidence, the second piece of evidence says that posting will confirm that, what? There's- We didn't start, that was a clarification question. I do have an important question. Will posting, so your evidence says posting will confirm that race and racism still matter, right?
I'm sorry?
Look, I started cross-sex when we moved on from the county.
It's okay.
stuff.
Just
You want to check about
whatever.
that?
No, come on.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm gonna send out the things. Everyone calm down. Let's have a good time. I feel like things are getting tense in here, and I just wanna get, it's the last round. We did it.
I will say thank you for sitting in the camera frame. That's very useful because I can't zoom out that much.
Did you zoom out or you just flip back and forth?
Right now I'm just flipping back and forth because the
Even
camera.
like when questions, it's like.
Yeah, I'm trying. I started flipping back and forth during questions, and now I'm just whoever gave the speech.
Yeah.
Anyway, I sent the thing. It's going to be in the case, cap, and then counter plan, and then, the topicality argument. It's gonna be great. Let's have a good time. I'm on camera.
You are on camera. You can dance though. I already told you this. I like your shirt though.
Thank you.
It's
Look,
now
it
that
has
you-
a hole in the back.
It does. Are you not cold? You're not cold at all?
I am, no. I think being cute is more important.
You're
than
from
being cold.
Chicago.
Exactly. So,
Sorry, Sylvie, could you give me the order again?
case, counterplan, no, case, critique, counterplan framework.
Cool.
Is everyone ready? Okay, are you ready, Jack, Manchester?
multiple ginger jacks.
There's a lot of ginger in here. Okay, stop.
Yeah.
The resolution's understanding of surveillance faces the rushless surveillance technology of social control norms pertaining to race and power to determine what is in and out of place that is always happening onto black flesh. We use the entry point of Korean gates for our understanding of surveillance because of the way she exemplifies our violence is enacted onto black women with the blackness is understood as through legibility politics that forces blackness into being rigidly understood. The AFCOS for an endorsement of black epistemology of dark surveillance, a practice of black performative practices and creative acts which contend with anti-black violence to as surveillance to escape enslavement that facilitate black survival. And this is what we call the act of wonder. We will give the example of Ursa who achieves privacy on the bus word, a rare occasion to wonder and dream without interpretation, to imagine the possibilities of her own life. She goes within her own private ambulation. This is what I do in the 1AC when I read the poetry that those private ambulations cannot be surveilled and cannot be interpolated by like oneness. Now, the world is really anti-black violence and there is no like movement within it. We don't need to win a time. We just need to win the legibility scripts put onto black women. But now onto the line by line. First of all, it's a golden evidence. Golden demand for study of power is encapsulated by our theory because anti-blackness not only encompasses the material exertions of power, but the symbolic manifestation of the black body is a phobogenic object. Gordon proposes an analysis that looks beyond blackness in order to understand blackness. This approach affects the specificity of black suffering by lumping it together with all the other racial categories. This ignores the way in which blackness underpins the achieve like equality for like white women? Is that the way you achieve equality for black people? Is there anything you want me to say? On to cap. The affirmative was the result of black violence that is always happening to black women, Korean girls, is the nature point to fully understand how racial events affect anti-capitalist movement, permutation, new balls just have like a Marxist understanding through wandering. Methodological whiteness, this and class-based analysis and tactics to improve conditions of white workers while resuming racialized privileges to reject all claims that class is race neutral. The accentuation of slavery and colonialism are necessary to effectively deal with modern capitalism. Now also, the actors of prior question, Russian capitalism can't be understood without the accounting legibility of the black woman, the fuck which crystallizes the arrangement between capital captivity, the black interior wondering exists within the symbiotic regime of capital. I'm not going to read the cards, but I'm going to read this broad evidence. Performance of wondering from the black interior independently to set the finish of capitalist productivity broadly. 17 wondering is the philosophical performance of such a feelings of the other vision of fear surveying. It against the text to moments of sin, reflection by black subjects to the black interior putting your head with the one that cannot take away knowledge. A black woman was shape even when they appear to be still never discredited the many of them be disrupted, roaming, moving inside the oppressive state, arguably disrupt the finish of capitalism productivity at the heart of streets. And now it's the counterplan. I'm going to destroy this. First of all, what is violence? What is a violent act? How do you determine what violence? Who are the people in power that are going to determine what is a violent act? Second of all, the fact that they do not know like why Russian girls are being able to claim blackness is an indirect sovereignty takeoff for them. Means that like literally a white person can be like, I identify as black, which means that any violent act that is done onto me means that someone else is going to be punished, right? Which means that white people can use this and like use this to like commit violence against the black people. First of all, the affirmative was the violence that is only happening to black women, i.e. Korean girls, literally puts us into such close proximity to violence, and we should always you should judge your impact calculus and put black women in the line of target. Second of all, the United States turn, right? That shit will be weaponized as hell against black people. Jack, do you think the people who infiltrated the Black Panther Party are all of a sudden going to be pro-black? Second, I'm going to turn the fiat bullshit here. The fact that they use futurity and they don't even know how this shit is going to be enacted means that the whiteness can like the fluidity of whiteness will allow them to be enacted in a way that is anti-black and like civil rights era movement, right? Like they can enact this and still be anti-black as black people. Turn, they have done something violent in the wrong, which is written framework, and Jack, you must punish them via taking away the fucking ballot. I am the black person in the room. I have had violence done onto me. That's been framework that's telling me that I'm not doing enough, which means that you will punish them and whatever. And since I'm the only black person, I say that you've done something violent onto me, you can't say you haven't done anything violent. The counterplan fails. All the videos of dead black kids fucking prove it, right? Like there's so many fucking videos of like people being literally killed, and like white people still don't give a shit. Oh, also my favorite term, white people like seeing black people die. Fucking photogenic object. They are going to enjoy the shit out of watching some black kids getting brutalized. So fuck this counterplan, fuck them. And on to framework. Our interpretation is the affirmative by sequence resistance to all or nearly all executive power to collect foreign intelligence information. We are a topic of discussion. Harris 13, the government collects communication to collect foreign intelligence information. A broad term, permitted to various levels, the receiver that diversity of purely political activities such as sports to get arrested to maybe collective targeting and numerous guidelines and often repetition. They still get a whole lot of wrong. Any reason why surveillance or executive power is good, why political strategies to better arts to address white legibility, liberalism, or humanism is good too. This thesis of the affirmative is an impact on every understanding. Legibility is bad. Predictability limits is one or presume a subject with agency and capacity to be free from harm. 3. Foreign debates are neutral subject to maximize skills, centers debate on institution to maintain white family suspense. What is an 8? Fair place of white person safety zone, the rules of place a way of being within the world with legitimate institution of access as the what's the guilty of reproducing the concept that fairness and what is stability reform white represents anything as having the best possible intentions conflict civil institutional reform provide a smoke screen because white people have the institution every black and brown body that doesn't have the things you like with the threat to your fantasy space concord. I find this a space now. Fairness is only an internal link to education because it normalizes what is allowed to be created even in this space for argument development. There is no independent reason to preserve our traditions aside from what discussion they facilitate. 4 is the role of the judges to vote for the money that is most discursively profitable to the state and the consumer with rationalized logics. 5 is jurisdiction is bad model. Refuse to be an overseer. Your only ethical option is to refuse to reproduce it and then rationalizing gas of jurisdiction or to prescribe limits to confinement of black police wandering What? 6 is the deputization. This framework turns the barriers into an extension of police and deputizing what the barriers to report. Give your black to barriers to the judge. You should refuse the role they force you through on framework because it's not only your job to punish them, now it's just a bunch of barbecue bakies. 7. We don't need to win their borders debate. Other debates of all their offers, we only need to win the excluding one AC and confining one who is specifically bad for black people. 8. Black people version of the affirmative cannot solve 3 reasons. State eligibility. The goal is to refuse totalizing impulses of neoliberalism by affirming state unreadability. They demand for us to discuss the topic of the list of clear policy proposals as anti-black Bakalani 17. Our new proposals to be an socialist local policy proposals that could suggest the black movements to be considered legitimate and engaged in Washington order practices that are legitimate within the dominant political order of liberal policies. The master lane is have to influence how black people position within the political order structures. Each practice go their land operation political rulings. Eight tells the limited the range of their proposals to those who accept the prevailing order. Card of order. I will send this out all later. This is the one card. I'm not gonna read that card. That topic convention gets circumvented. How 18 realized, whatever. It just gets circumvented. Trump isn't like the fucking president. You think he's gonna do anything good for black people? Black switch side debate is good. They're moral studies events from the perspective of organization of observing people. I'm gonna teach us black debaters to survive to go and to counter surveil anti-black institution that is more unique and a lot more valuable. Policy debates over reform is predicated on exclusionary and maladaptive knowledge production which should be rejected. Trevor 18. Fiat traces the medicine thing with Asian standard and is fundamentally incompatible with what it takes to organize fiat. It's incrementalist politics to not debate what means policies get enacted in reality. Radical changes on every first goes with the positives. Policy fiat is the realm of possible and the rest is in the potential of the thinking about it, focusing on the state, misunderstand the issue of the state. Isn't an initial state status or heuristic shouldn't. Doesn't mean that we should fear a policy or action implementation as the first step is incompatible with the marginalized voices and complexity. A complex reality of politics away from the differential epistemological access to the world when the debate offers a policy action. Stopping the competition and asserting the policy should be best in the abstract. This is a moral harm. It means that they will be engaging in bad politics. I'm gonna. What should I do? Prefer a model that studies the law's relationship to slavery. Article 18. Constitution amendment is not simply located in the Constitution and the executive of the law. The state of the law are invested in the status quo. Vision centers are not founding fathers but the enslaved and the indigenous. It stands the law and the U.S. is constructing political project not as neutral forces. It first the U.S. not simply to the Atlantic century but the central colonial project, history, citizenship forces, collaboration within the Ministry of the Public Law and law scholarship. This study does not assume any progress by syllabus the enduring contextual violence and the law refuges and justifies law reform addresses racial capitalism, brutal access, effectively extending its lifespan. Are you all ready? Or do you want me to send out the
Can we
cards?
have those cards forward? Yeah.
I cut 2 cards.
Also the cap card.
Did I read a cup card? I don't
Yeah,
think I
you
did.
did.
Wow, I'm horrible. I will work on that.
Brody.
Brody? Okay. Okay, since you all already have the full cards, I'm just going to send you the cards up to where I cut them, right? I cut 2 cards, right?
I think you marked 2, yeah. And then
I
there
need to stop saying cut instead of marks because people think that I'm cheating.
Or that you've cut cards.
I
used
don't
to
cut
say
cards, I-
flipping instead of cutting. I took a lot of cards.
there were like a few on framework.
Yeah, I cut 2 cards on framework, which was Wilson and the other evidence. I'm sorry, I'm slowing down the debate. It's just I'm a horrible person.
No, it's fine. I'm just coming to my decision time. This is great.
I feel so garbage. Please stop. I already feel so bad. Now I feel even worse. I hope you're happy.
No, it's fine. I'll go yell at Gary to give me more. It's fine. I'm sure that'll go well.
No, he's gonna put in a cheap shot.
I didn't read the Brody evidence, did I?
You did.
Okay, then I finished it. Right?
Yeah, you didn't remember.
Oh, I didn't send it out. Okay, that makes sense. Guys, I'm a mess. Yo, I am a mess. I don't want to be flamed. I'm sorry. I sent it. I am on camera, so they're gonna be like, this bitch.
I streamed this round earlier where
Krishna, we don't have time for your narratives.
oh.
What did I just say about my decision time? What did I just say? You're not even in the debate and you're going to cut into mine.
Okay, I sent. Can we start process, please?
Let me get the cards. I just don't have them.
Okay, can I tell the story like really quickly?
Oh my god.
It was like
This still doesn't have the Akbar evidence, which was the last card you read on framework, as well as the fiat card, which was the second to last card you read on framework.
You had a card about black switch.
I read a lot of cards.
Speaking of which.
Did I not send out anything? I feel bad.
Can I tell the story? It's kind of
Quickly.
like-
Go for it.
Okay, someone said Saponia instead of Subpoena, and it was on live stream.
Saponia?
Yeah. It was Trinity
That is rough.
GG.
It's
Yeah.
a GG, so it's okay.
Yeah,
Whatever they
I
want.
know. It was really funny, and afterward they were like, fuck, that was on camera. But it's funny.
You leave some shit.
See, that was, the story was worth it.
So not only did you live stream
That was
him
worth
fucking
the
up-
loss.
Not only did you live stream him fucking up, but now you're on camera calling him out again, which
Yeah,
is
now
just
you're
weird.
talking shit about me.
I hope GG rolls at you in the future.
Their name is GG, they were gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
Send. I don't know why I'm being like this. It was all my fault. Are you agreeing and disagreeing at the same time? You know, at least you hold me accountable. I must confess, when I wear this dress. I feel, guys, I have a question.
I thought it was gonna be Britney Spears. I thought it was I must confess. You know, like hit me baby one more time.
Hit me, baby, one more time.
I got it. Cool.
Okay, let's go.
Let's talk. So first question, is wandering the only good black epistemology?
We said that wandering is a good black epistemology. Why?
Then what about topical black epistemologies? Why aren't those
We say
accessible
that
under our
using
model?
the study specifically bad, and we have multiple words as to why that
What
is bad.
evidence indicates that, or what is your argument for why there are no black epistemologies that can engage the state?
We say engaging the study specifically valid for black women.
I understand that your epistemology thinks that. We, for example, read a card about Marxist black epistemology that uses radical traditions to alter state power. Why isn't that an example of a good black epistemology that you could use?
We have reasons why it's a bad black epistemology because it's colorblind. It's one specific.
I
it's
understand
specifically-
your epistemology thinks that. Why is that necessarily the only epistemology that you can debate?
Well, we've chosen to debate this specific epistemology, and this is one epistemology that I will defend.
I'm not asking about why the app is good or bad. I'm asking about models. You indicted our model by saying that it excludes black epistemologies. I'm wondering why that's true. It seems like there's other black epistemologies that are accessible under our model.
Okay, which ones?
For example, the Marxist materialist tradition, which uses state power. Another one that you could use is Afro-optimism. That
I just don't like what to be like the reason why if this is a formal question, the reason why I fundamentally disagree with what epistemology or whatever, it's not like a question of epistemology, it's whether it's a question of I'm a black woman, I know what's good for me, and I don't like being told what to do.
So your argument is that this is the only black epistemology that is good.
This is the only epistemology that I say is good because it's the one that I'm defending in debate. I don't know what
can't
you're
you
trying to
defend
get
other
at.
things that you don't believe in?
Why? Because I don't fucking believe in them. I'm not going to sit here and say the study is good when I know what the fuck the study is capable of. I wouldn't expect you all to stand up and say that racism is good in response to our affirmative because it's a bad thing. I don't understand. Why should I say things that I disagree with? Fuck, that's psychological violence. Tell the black woman to read arguments she doesn't disagree with.
Why does reading arguments that you disagree with create psychological violence?
Because one, it makes me think through the oppressor's eyes and look at myself the way that the white institutions look at me, right? This is surveillance specifically. It makes me view my body through the lens of white
I guess,
institutions.
how did you come to the conclusion that your epistemology is necessarily true?
I perform it.
Why does that mean it's necessarily true, or how did you come to that conclusion?
I read books.
So you read books and decided.
I don't
that
understand where you're going with
can't-
this.
Hold on. Why are you
laughing at me? That makes me feel bad.
I'm trying to understand the argument. Why does defending arguments that you don't believe in mean that you don't believe that this is true anymore?
I don't like being told what to do. Final argument.
We have 10.
Yes, please. Yes. Use a pen, because my phone is about to die. Okay. Okay,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I said I'll answer the T which is the last one.
Yeah.
I'll answer that on the T phone.
Okay, mine just keep getting answered.
Okay. Sure. You want me to just say?
I'm sorry.
Do you want me to say anything else? Okay, cool.
We're good. 824.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. I am still on camera.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Why do I exist like this? You guys?
I think about that a lot too.
Jack wasn't immediately in my sights. So
I'm watching myself. Look at how fucking ugly I look. Damn. I am.
No, you look
Ugliest
no
person.
one has looked bad. Like no one has looked worse on live stream than they do in person. Cause this camera is like,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
You got what I'm saying?
It's like that iPhone like smoothing controversy,
Yeah.
except the camera's just so shitty at smoothing us.
Yeah, it's like when people Snapchat you on an Android
Have
and it
you
looks like
sent out
they-
something yet?
Yeah, I have the delay function, so it might take a second, but it should.
It's okay, I got it.
Cool.
But I'm feeling 20.
Jack is nowhere in sight, so we can blame him for the decision time.
I don't know why, but for some reason, this is really weird. The OU versus RS live stream is still going on, but it's like the OU versus Georgia RS live stream never ended. So that's like still this round, and I have this round being streamed. I have no idea what's going on, and I'm trying to figure out how to end it without ending here.
He's already in the process of dealing with Jacob's pressure.
Here, I'm gonna go get him.
Jack, I can go get him.
No, I'll go get him.
Okay, I like going there.
What?
Jack, Manchester.
I love her. She's so funny.
Amazing. Y'all flew in, right, Angela? Indiana freaking drove, so I know. It's like a 9-hour drive.
Where is IU? Isn't there?
Bloomington, it's like
Yeah.
south-ish Indiana, but still like.
I know.
Oh, okay.
I'm from Wisconsin.
Mm.
So I
Gotcha.
don't know.
Midwest, Big Ten.
That's terrible.
Did you draw that rose?
We drove, but we also
It
got
was
wrecked.
very
too. It was supposed to be
beautiful.
like
I'll zoom in on
a
it.
5-hour drive, and it took us like 6.5.
Because of traffic.
Just like 85. Like there's road work. There's a couple accidents. We basically went on like local roads for like at least 2 hours of it.
Seriously?
It was terrible.
Still have the rural country.
Oh yeah, we got to see Trump country. Oh yeah, a lot of it. Faster enough fit on the road. Landed at. Like,
Can't find him.
guys,
I tried though.
This is on him. Decision time. All him.
You can't even blame the story.
Get some water.
Someone call him.
Someone call him.
I'm just gonna add.
Just call him. No, just call
I
him.
don't have his number.
call
What?
him all the time.
Why would I have Jack Manchester's number? It's
So
disgusting.
you do policy things.
I know policy number.
I have Jack Manchester's number.
Hello.
Is your number still 224-392-8361?
Yeah.
Thanks for live streaming that.
I'm from Chicago.
Stupid.
You're new here, right?
Are you Chicago or like suburbs?
No, I'm suburbs. Look at me, I'm obviously suburbs.
Yeah.
Very
At
much.
least you know, you do look suburbs.
I'm very aware.
White dude. It's Case then the Cap K.
Okay. 1 second.
I'll start with the Gordon ontology stuff, then do solvency stuff with the overview. Like it'll be imminently clear, hopefully.
Okay.
Is everyone set? Good? Yeah.
No. Because I feel to slow down this. How that is up.
Is there an overview on
There's an overview on cap, I guess. Yeah. It's an overview.
That's
Just work itself out. Okay, is everyone set now? Yeah? Okay. They need to win an overwhelming amount of their ontology arguments to win any of their answers to the framework or any of their arguments about why the alternative might possibly not solve their own understanding of ontology is fundamentally flawed. There's no ontology external from contingent decisions. The creation of racist institutions requires a denial of agency specific to a specific population that clearly presupposes the condition and ability of groups to reclaim their status with humanity. This is especially true in the context of their 1AC arguments. All their arguments about the way that surveillance is placed onto black females is precisely Gordon's argument about contingency and particularities. It means they can't win any of their arguments about society scripting these things necessarily on to black females. Our argument is simply that these things are malleable, they can change, the cap alternative is better, and they can't win any of their arguments about why this means they can't engage on framework. Gordon's analysis, their analysis of Gordon was incorrect. Gordon's argument is not an effacement of specificity, it's precisely the opposite. It focuses on contingent instances, which is exactly what our argument is, and proves that they flatten ontology necessarily, which means it's a worse heuristic for you to decide, especially when you decide this debate. Now, the solvency-based argument, the app does not solve. Moments of relief from a harsh world do nothing to alter material conditions that undergird the world. Bryant says that specific political strategies aimed at deconstructing the war machine that constitutes civil society is necessary to end racialized forms of surveillance. The answer in cross-examination that this shit's inevitable is absolutely not true. Our Shepard's evidence that I'm going to read in a second says the app gets sabotaged. The state is extremely powerful. It identifies moments of resistance and literally subverts it by infiltrating it and preventing it from reaching a successful end. Their Brown card says we need to literally create new research paradigms to alter the way that surveillance is discussed and new literature is produced. The app does not do this. That'll be in the 1NR as well. The example the 2AC overview gave was that the poem in the 1AC could not be surveilled. Precisely not true. That's especially given the fact that we're on live stream. If they're right about all their arguments about the way that the NSA scripts these things onto black females, then they would look and find things like this live stream and find those moments of departure. It's a form of catharsis that doesn't change anything. The state will sabotage Shepard's and 17. Texts that make us feel good because they're exhilarating and not exactly the same as effective tactics. They can be precisely the opposite. The state has learned political judo, whereby the left section may be turned around and used to strengthen the swift and the right. The provocateur has an even more sinister mission. The provocateur provokes the actions that entrap their unwary acts on the ways that will allow the police to pounce in. It will lock them up. There are many guns to the FBI, sending their agents and provocateurs into organization for the purpose of dividing, disrupting, and discrediting them. The civil rights movement, the ruling class developed a covert strategies for undermining new radicalism. And agent provocateurs concentrated on enticing revolutionaries to commit acts that would divide the movement, landing them in jail, disrupting highly effective African-American people's movements. Only agent provocateurs tactics utilized during the approaches against the Iraq War and in Occupy. This kind of manipulation still continues to decay. Capitalism causes extinction. No impact defense in the 2AC means we outweigh comparatively on scope, so we'll win a relative solvency deficit argument. Climate change, environmental degradation, structural violence, the quest for resources all make conflict inevitable and the earth uninhabitable. The PAR evidence outweighs on scope simply because of the magnitude argument. Preventing extinction should be our primary ethical concern. The survival of the proletariat is on the line, disregarding the systemic and ongoing violence perpetuated by capitalism in favor of individualistic and non-falsifiable impact claims feeds into the rapid atomization of the atomization that sustains the ideology of capitalism. It outweighs on magnitude. I already made the argument about the extinction-based arguments. It outweighs because it's the utmost moral evil and a disavowal of the risk makes it more likely. Burn 17. It's a good thing for people existing extinction to deprive more people of enjoying this. Billions of people would have died painful deaths. There would be no future generations. The value of all those generations together greatly exceeds the value of the current generation. It would mean the loss of the only known form of intelligent life. Humans' capacity for rationality is valuable in and of itself. Existing people would endure the physical pain and painful premature deaths. There could be various psychological effects. A sense of hopelessness left will be no more humans. Their project will end with you. That is the only egalitarian metric. Anything else collapses cooperation and collective action crises which make extinction inevitable. Continent 18, the human culture is far from immutable. We can rise to the challenges faced with an uncertain future. The only wise thing we can do is prepare one. Only one outcome is truly irreversible. Extinction concerns are often dismissed. There have been far too many nuclear near misses to arrest easy extinction. It's the rule. 99.9% of the species that ever just survived on deep time is unfathomable. Displays of unity typically happen in wartime. We might have had a violent past, but there are no more dangerous enemy than ourselves. Equity will help us navigate safely a future that unleashes the full potential of our civilization. We cannot do this unless we are humbly grounded within the possibility of our own destruction. Survival's life is a primal instinct in the absence of the common enemy. We might find a common cause within our survival. The line by line, the first argument is that the app outweighs the piece of evidence I read above. Obviously, answer that, and it also begs the question of relative solvency. I did a host of solvency debating on the case above, but they also did not have an alternative press in the 2AC, which makes it fundamentally try or die for the alternative because they conceded the alternative is able to solve and resolve capitalism. We'll do the alternative debating in a second after answer the permutation. Do that here. One, they don't get a permutation. A lack of plan means there's no low cost of competition, so the logic of op cost doesn't apply. The app and the alter mutually exclusive. Tuesday can read say that folding class into identitarian discourses substitutes moralizing for political critique and renders active
activism vulnerable to copyright co-option, which means that it fails all her link arguments also into the permutation. I'll do the link debate proper here. 1, the oversight DA. The AF's critique of surveillance buys into the lie that monitoring private actors causes gross injustice. The political stance provides ideological fuel for cutting the oversight of Wall Street traders and global finance. The impact is an acceleration of exploitation driven by insider trading and boom and bust cycles, which line the pockets of the rich while evaporating the wages of the working and middle class. Surveillance of the bourgeoisie is necessary to resolve this. Circulation DA. Faced with the question of surveillance, the app affirms the idea of wandering as getting a rooted space and moving outward. That's a fundamentally neoliberal understanding of politics where which uncritically mimics and affirms the dollar's ability to circulate. Not only does this mean that their theory provides the ideological backdrop for market expansion by greenlighting mechanisms of liberal control, the impact is a propagation of neoliberal financing which breaks down the borders of the third world and countries, which opens up for market intervention through structural adjustments and capital flows which exploit poverty globally and individually. They can't go for a permutation argument when they've explained explicitly that wandering is a form of moving away, creating spaces of catharsis. We fundamentally impact turn the thesis of 1AC solvency via the thesis of alternative solvency, which says that the only way to resolve capitalism is via literal engagement, not looking for moments of catharsis, but looking for moments to literally seize back the state power, seizing back the power from the state-based apparatus. Additionally, there's a few other link arguments that were simply dropped in the 2AC. One is the gray piece of evidence. Refusal to take a stance on the world we want in this moment is bad because it means that the social norms that exist post the affirmative are bad. We have an active investment in the status quo, which causes the same forms of neoliberalism that we have criticized. Finally, the Burgum evidence makes a melancholia argument forwarding anti-blackness as something that cannot be resolved, or as the 1AC described it, something that is a fixed script onto black females, mimics the discursive move of white supremacists, use these forms of discourse and prevents positive orientation towards power that forecloses the possibility of social change, because that's literally what the alternative says is necessary to result in an effective form of change. They say that classism, class-based politics are only for white folks. That's absolutely not true. I'll do the alternative debating here. Marxist materialism is the best starting point for racial redress. The Ferguson evidence traces the history of black Marxism. Class-based organizing materialized itself through the Great Railway Strike of 1877, the Haymarket Square struggle, sharecropping organization, and much, much more. The alternative creates anti-racist outcomes via the form of capitalist and Marxist theorizing. The alternative is also to build solidarity through a mass socialist movement which uses this theorization. It's a demand on the state that results in material redress by way of the state and can include things like single-payer, wealth redistribution, UBI, prison abolition, using the NSA to surveil people who should be surveilled rather than who it surveils in the status quo. It brings oppressed groups under the moral concern of the state, which solves the case and the negative impacts of cap. Even if they win a better explanation for the way that harms operate in the status quo, if they cannot win a relative solvency claim for it, it should default to the alternative. The state is necessarily key to resolving the impacts we've outlined, which means that both the permutation fails and the alternative is necessary to Line 17. The future depends on the ability to come together and reach the limits of the siloed politics where everyone fights without mapping the connections between the political circles, whether occupied dreamers or BLM. There's hope that all these movements will join together and become a powerful force that will actually govern this utopian dreaming that's been sorely missing. The boldest example of new utopianism is a vision for Black Lives, a sweeping policy platform that realized by the coalition of over 50 black leadership and organizations that goes on to place police shootings and mass incarceration in the context of an economic system that's waged war on black and brown communities. The platform means concrete proposals, defunding prisons, removing police from schools, demilitarizing police, reparations, and breaking up the banks. It is imperative that we put forth a collective vision of economic justice for all. The climate crisis puts some plans into transformation for a tight, unyielding deadline. A power and broad coalition is pushing hard to transition to renewable energy. If more states adopt these kinds of targets, Trump's efforts might be insufficient. It is becoming possible to see a genuine path forward in new political formations that would marry the fight for economic fairness with a deep analysis of racism and misogyny. Formations could come home to millions engaging in activism and organizing, knitting together a multiracial, intergenerational coalition bound by a common transformational project. People's political platforms are starting to lead, and politicians will have to follow. The last argument is this piece of evidence that says that they are a prior question. 1, all the link analysis and the alternative analysis proves they're not a prior question. 2 is that this is a new link piece of evidence that says that we have to look for moments of catharsis outside of the state. 1 that obviously does not solve because it does not result in literally taking it down. That's all the piece of evidence I read about how the state is necessary. 2 is that this political stance is one that disempowers things like leftist-based politics, which are what our alternative says is necessary to solve the harms of cap.
Awesome, blossom. Cuter than a possum.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Right? Are you ready for cross?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, let's start on the case.
Yeah.
What is solve? What does it mean to solve?
Remedy the harms that the 1AC has outlined. So there
That's-
might be a host of harms
That's
that you've
awesome.
outlined.
Let's talk about
Okay.
how do we know when things are solved.
How do we know when the harms stop to happen, cease
Oh,
happening?
That's awesome too. How do
Well,
we
like
know
some
that
amount
things?
of it. You can't. Sometimes you can't absolutely solve something.
Yeah, no,
You
for
can
sure. I'm
relatively solve
talking.
things. Yeah.
Let me talk.
Okay.
Second thing is how do we know that things are getting better?
How How do we know things are getting better? You can use things like you can compare the current conditions or a future condition versus the current conditions or a previous condition. You can use things like
How do you
things
know
like
that things are getting better in
statistics.
the context of your contingent instances of violence, right? You said that we should
Yeah,
see
yeah,
the
yeah.
ontological, we should say as
Yeah,
contingent
absolutely. So
consequences.
I guess I can better explain this in the context of the cap impact if you'd like that, or do you
No,
want it only in
thanks,
the
just
condition?
in the context of Gordon.
Yeah, okay, sure. So like increased economic prosperity for black individuals. Things like
Why
decreased
is
levels of police
increased
violence.
economic
Things like
prosperity a
lower
good
levels
thing?
of incarceration. Why is increased prosperity a good thing?
Yes.
That means that people's quality of lives are better.
Okay, how do,
They live more comfortable lives, they have less hardships that are placed upon them. That's something I think is just intrinsically good.
yeah, okay, let's do the whole, at what point is the app like solved? Like what can the app do to solve?
What can the app do to solve? I think you need to isolate a better link between your method and your harms you've outlined.
Why does us being on live stream mean that we get like co-opted?
Yeah, so that's the Shepherd's piece of evidence is pretty good on this question, and especially when you read it in context of the two Brown pieces of evidence you read in the 1AC that says that the NSA is always already looking to surveil black females. The Shepherd's piece of evidence says that the state's even better than that. They always try to infiltrate movements that try to create moments of relief. Our argument is that because the state has
How?
vested
What movements and how do they do that?
So the example that's given in the Shepherd card, I think, is talking about when the Black Panthers, they had the moment that caused the schism between them, when one wing of the Black Panther Party, was more reformist, one part was more radical. The government literally sent in infiltrators and saboteurs to enter those movements and
That's
convince
so
other people of the other
interesting
thing.
because the Black Panther was Black Marxism. Why does
It was not exclusively Black Marxism.
Okay, so we just
There were definitely components that were Black Marxists.
Okay, yeah. If the government can infiltrate them, what can they not infiltrate y'all?
They can attempt to, but there's a couple arguments I'll make to hedge against this. One is that we are less radical than the Black Panthers insofar as solving. We would do things like elect officials to office, who would then pass things like single payer, UBI, prison abolition, which means that even if there's an attempt to sabotage it, we literally pass the laws to get around it. And two, this cuts harder into AF solvency because we have a more concrete mechanism for solving our harms than I think the 1AC does. So
That's
I don't think you can.
I really appreciate you. Okay, I'm done.
Okay.
It'll be the counter plan and then T. I sent you out.
There's a long overview on T. I would get another sheet.
That sounds amazing. I love long overviews. Exactly, that's my whole thing.
Unironic. Are you sending any cards?
I did. Did it not work again?
No.
Might be a delay.
Yeah.
That was last round, it didn't work.
I think it's like really
I
awesome
just got it.
that you two are the heights that you are, because when we debate people, they're usually the same height, so they can like exchange the thing easily. But me and him are like very different, so it takes us like forever. So I really
I'm a short
appreciate
kid.
it. I feel you.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'6".
You're not short.
I'm 5'4". I hate you.
I'm like barely 5.
I'm technically 5'3 3/4, but
I feel like this
We round up.
should not happen.
we round up, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
Everyone good?
Yes.
We'll concede the counter plan is a bad idea. We're kicking it. There's no conditionality argument in the 2EC, so don't let them make one. I'll answer the argument about losing because we read T on the line framework.
T.
Our interpretation is that the outcome should defend an increase on the restriction on the executive authority in the topic areas, and the debate is about whether that restriction is good or bad. That impacts advocacy skills through argument and refinement. While more limited topic produces an iterative process of debates over core, focus points contestation that develops intricacy and nuance within arguments which best accesses and the education offense debates pedagogical uniquenesses. It is one of the rare places in which you artificially limit the discussion and produce in-depth debates between two well-prepared opponents. Our model debate encourages a reprieve from clash in which the 1AC attempts to strategically no link and be as big as possible and clarify itself as the debate progresses. Our model creates competent advocates which can debate propositions in the real world, which is the only impact. True debate, for instance, if we were to debate and loosen the presidential flex, the Black Niles implicate the effect of that loss motivates debaters to research back on answers and link terms to those arguments because of the limited nature of the topic. Those debates would necessarily occur again, posting the negative to research new answers to the link terms and argument innovation. This process results in nth level iteration of arguments as they approach the most developed and complete form. Their interpretation stops the concert process of debating over the same core or issues to innovate around, and therefore cannot lead to our skills. Now, switch debate is an independent internal link to skills because it requires debaters to question pre-existing ideas and beliefs through defending every angle of the topic. That's the one Z brain evidence. It also creates better subject efficiency by forcing self-reflexivity. When you argue so, you come to better interpretations of why you believe the stuff that you believe. We access a much better internal link to app offense because we have a spillover can. Remember when I see cross-lex advocacy skills through clashes which will allow Iowa to break down dominant conceptions of organizational surveillance or convince people of ontological destitution in academia, which is what their evidence is about now. 3 arguments to other offense. First debate is a game. It has 2 opposing sides, a winner and a loser. They follow norms such as disclosure, speech time, and order. Topicality is no more arbitrary than these. The game nature of debate proves it does not make truth judgments or alter subjectivities. Judges vote for untrue arguments all the time because people win on the flow. That proves you should evaluate skills first. It also means that T isn't about what they can or can't do. Rather, it's about the burden of rejoinder. Lack of a valid Q warrant means you can still read the app and lose, which solves all of their offense. Now, second is read it on the negative. Anti-blackness is a core negative generic against any topical apps. Their first bound code is a great link or argument against any 702 surveillance or app or any other surveillance app. They have a good reason by reading it on both sides or in every round is T. Rather, they simply have arguments for why the literature base of the one you see is good. That epistemology is inevitable under our model, but the quality of debates is better. Third is that T. BA solves. Here's an example. The United States federal government should prohibit the bulk incidental collection of surveillance data on black folk in the U.S. This is what app could draw upon anti-blackness and other radical black epistemologies and read advantages based on opacity, survival strategies, or affirmation of black life. They win. The TBA isn't perfect because of the arguments they made on the counterclaim, i.e. the fact that it's hard to define racial categories or that white people operate. That is ground for the negative, and that debate would be fantastic. We're not prepared to have it because we're negative, and we don't read a surveillance app. The first argument is that T is violent. There's no warrant for this. It doesn't force any specific text with evidence, style, or justification, which proves it's not exclusionary. We don't read it only against black folks, rather against any team that fails to meet the burden of rejoinder. The cross-lex made an argument that Subi doesn't want to do things, and making Subi do things is violent. That's inevitable because the debate already tells them what to do in other contexts. It imposes speech times even when you would rather talk longer. People disclose their arguments because of norms. Their speech order. Topicality is simply another rule like that. They say we meet. The card they read is about Section 702, which is not the app. It does not establish legislative and judicial restrictions. They establish a host of definitions of what they don't meet. They are about USFT action. They don't pass legislation. They don't prohibit government activity as per regulation or restriction. They don't limit Article 2 power, which is what the executive authority is about. They say they give us ground. It's concessionary and unpredictable. Regardless, the government is specific to actions. There's no good surveillance. There's no generic surveillance good card. Rather, we have evidence about why restricting specific instances of government surveillance is bad, which there's no predictable basis for that linking in the 1AC. Even if their app was debatable, that doesn't make their model desirable. If we win that they justify a massive amount of potential abuse, we are limited claims that we can never do enough research to keep up with all possible apps, especially when their counterinterpret has no definitional basis, nor does it lay out a predictable basis for what apps are topical. They say predictability is bad. It's good. It's critical to in-depth class, which is all the impact debating I did at the top. Our argument is about the procedure of the game, not the real world. If trees are offense doesn't apply and we solve it. Anyways, because you can still have some level of unpredictability within a limited topic. Our argument is simply about setting a standard for which the negative has some level of preparedness. They say fairness is bad. The Splinterson article is not even close to applicable. It's a long complaint about some asshole in the Cabrillo Student Center and how he didn't give money to black folks to travel to a conference. Extrapolating that to all topical debate is ridiculous. What is in Nate? Reading of troubles with the Student Center and despite liberal advisor Tom Harrell re-waking my stand for Cabrillo, Selma, and Sonia, it was on the post and protest of our Harrell decision not to allow 30 students of color to have funds to travel to a conference on race. Harrell spent all the money on t-shirts. What an asshole. But regardless, our argument is about procedural fairness, not about structural fairness. The structural fairness is worsened in a world in which there's no procedural fairness because other teams that have a lot more resources are white and have structural biases in their favor can take advantage of that. They said the role of the ballot is discursive analysis of blackness. That's impact debating. The role of the ballot is to vote for the team that best defends their model of debate. They haven't won. That our model excludes discursive analysis of race. They say other debates solve one. Our model debate necessitates an iterative process, which means that it's a constant repetition and testing. Every round we're in, under or underprepared is when neither team is engaging in the model of democratic deliberation. Second, it doesn't solve fairness, which is basically conceded impact area of the game of debate. And 3 other rounds solve the app too. They say the TVA can solve group all of them. They're negative arguments that prove that there's negative ground in the world of our topic, but regardless, there's no truth claim that they know that their epistemology is true, and there's other black epistemologies which solves their black SSD card. Their Kramer evidence is inconsistent for the app for 2 reasons. A, the app's model of debate does not teach anyone to think like organizers because it says progress is impossible, and second, the app does teach skills that are critical to organization because we teach advocacy skills that you need to become effective advocates in your community. The awkward evidence is law bad is a negative argument, and once again against any topical affirmative. Regardless, so you can do this with topical action. It can talk about how the law has been created as a result of anti-blackness, and that's the reason why the law is bad, which is the reason why you should restrict executive action.
Anything? No, you're good. Cool.
10 minutes?
Yeah. 10.
Okay.
Sorry now.
Stop.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I was gonna leave it on. Yeah, I think I'm gonna say that. I know.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Jack, how's your day been?
Shouldn't answer that on the live stream. Spirit of the Shirley, it's been great. No, but I am tired.
I'm very tired.
Everyone is.
It's bad. So like, Spirit of the Shirley is like bad things, right?
No, Spirit of the Shirley is
It's just
everything.
anything.
It is everything.
Because
It's everything and nothing.
I definitely have used it in both positive and negative context. I'm not sure which one is correct, but I guess all of them are.
It is used for every context.
Just like that.
Good?
No, I'm good. Don't look at me, please. Disgusting. Okay, we good.
5:40. Look at that.
More of Jack's decision time gone.
Great, this is so good. Let's have a coordinated effort.
Yeah, this is actually better for Jack.
So this is someone
We don't like the gay. We hate gay people.
that's a link. That's in the live stream.
It could have been Jack this time. Jack said that. What are you telling me?
Well, that is not the fucking Spirit of the Shirley, let me tell you that.
screw this really is Jack getting a link for something.
Can I do a little trick on one of you?
What?
A trick. It's a psychological trick.
Oh, okay. Let's go.
Krishna, you seem so ready. I don't think
But I feel like debaters are too smart. They're gonna catch on. Anyway, how do you spell yes?
Y-E-S. Oh, I know this one already.
Never fucking mind.
I know this one too.
Fuck y'all.
Madison.
Do you know?
I mean, probably do, but I'll try.
Okay.
I'll try to play along.
How do you spell yes?
Y-E-S.
What does E-Y-E-S spell? Fuck y'all. None of you are
See,
fun.
but it's also because you just played a video.
None of you are fun. This is
Wait,
not
ask one of them.
opportunity.
Oh, well, I guess we didn't make it.
Wait, what?
Do you want a psychological trick to be played on you?
No.
Oh.
No, let's play a little game.
Depends. How bad is he gonna fuck me?
Not very bad. It's
Okay.
They got it. So
Okay.
okay.
I'll play.
How do you spell yes?
Man.
How do you spell yes?
Y-E-S.
What does E-Y-E-S spell?
Yes.
Yes!
This I zoomed in.
Oh, that was excellent.
I got him.
It's recording. It'll be on the internet forever. The thing, the tab.
Actually, I have
Oh
no
my
excuse.
god.
That was
You just got whole ass god.
I can't believe that just
That
happened.
was so worth it. That was great.
Georgia AR gets god from Tiger Race.
yeah, that's Georgia A.
I'm so excited that you got that one wrong because all of them got it, and I was like, wow.
You're really rubbing
wait,
it
she's
in.
smart enough.
You're really going in for the kill.
I mean, I deserve that. I didn't know what eyes spelled.
That's gonna be the 2AR, like Jack Manchester. You can't vote for him. He can't even spell eyes.
Okay.
Case, counterplan, critique, framework.
Yeah.
Are there cards?
No.
Y-E-S. Down, down.
All right.
Actually, what did you say? It was case?
Case, counterplan, cap, framework. Cool.
Let's go.
Okay. Is anybody not ready? Surveillance is a racialized method of rendering blackness intelligible by prescribing social and cultural norms to define what is in or out of place. The world is rooted in anti-black violence that attempts to define blacks as a position of ontological destitution, using a law to punish black women like Corin against the assholes that process of surveillance. We gave the example of a black woman who wandered to escape the push and pull of other people's desires. Subi wanders through her poetry through the poetry of the one you see by using unbound kinetic energy where whiteness no longer surveil her inner dreams. Wandering is a way to render oneself out of sight, which spills over into broader freedom strategies. Your role is to use deputization and turning in the runaway slave back to civil society. You should have stopped monitoring and tracking black needs as property. We don't need to win the ontology debate. You've read the best piece of evidence that indicts reformism. We only need to win that eligibility and social norms are at the center of the debate. This, though, the Bryant exception. Your citation of a white dude who thinks that rocks are people cannot tell the app that we're ineffective. He is Bryant lumps every identity category, class, race, gender together without attaching the social norms that are replaced onto black women. Jack, you cannot look at me at the end of the round and say that Bryant is somehow better or comes to grasp with the kind of claim that Serpent is making, who looks at Winter's work and specifically says that we should at least try. You should have an ethical imperative to try and imagine a world where trying to imagine a world where black people are no longer subjected to whiteness when there's only a risk of things getting better because of the affirmative. And also, you cannot know that it's effective
you cannot know that it's effective or ineffective, and you shouldn't be expected to make that role. Rather, you should know whether or not it's appropriate for you to preclude that possibility of occurring to we concede the shepherd's evidence. The only small option that you had for reformism goes away. That this evidence is fantastic, and why saboteurs will view any kind of change to the status quo and crack down on it. The app doesn't need to spill over, which proves that this doesn't implicate the app, because we only need to prove that wandering should not be policed within this debate round. That is the only implication. Your only ethical role is to refuse to be an overseer. However, all forms of enactment are will inevitably be taken out by saboteurs. Counterplan. The only black woman in this room has deemed your acting violent. You have an ethical obligation to reject the reading of framework when she has told you that these state strategies don't work. This is a flat-out conceded argument by the bloc, which means that we don't need any kind of external justification. Rather, you should just vote negative because a black woman told you to do so. This might not be great for debate or whatnot, but but this is all secondary to causing violence to black women within the round. Proves that engaging in the state is violent for black people. Capitalism. We don't need to impact defense because capitalism is not the fault of black women. No, assuming being held accountable for every body in the future is the white futurity that expects black women to play the role as the shepherd of the human race. They have conceded on the counterplan that futurity against the futurity is a way of pushing up the violence that's happening against black women in the status quo. There's only a chance that things cannot get worse for black women. They've not proven a unique kind of reason why extinction is bad, but rather you should try and flip your impact calculus and prefer and put those who you never think about, those who you don't have an attachment and affective attachment for at the center. Yes, permutation is the only way to prove whether the app is incompatible with the movement. That you have to try and prove that the alternative alone is enough to justify silencing a black woman. Yes, well, obviously we get a permutation that because you have to prove a germane reason why the app is bad. This shepherd evidence applies to the alternative so well. You get sabotaged by Reaganists or even the New Democratic Party, which was the DNC literally sabotaged to Bernie Sanders in order to get a liberal in place. This is the most moderate. He's the most moderate vanilla kind of radical that you can possibly get, yet he was still sabotaged by his own party. Just proves the overarching role that the state has in sabotaging all different forms of resistance that changes the status quo. Linked to financialization, black people are getting put through finance right now. You can see the Brody evidence which indicates the fetishization of black body. This always inevitably occurring. The financialization is also not unique. You can point to an act where Suki goes outside or Ursa on the bus that specifically causes any kind of financialization that's different. We were talking about the in-round forms of solvency. There's a battle fatigue descent to the alternative. You are forcing black women into a mode of engagement that they've already told you is violent to them. Social changes to a Marxist means something different to someone like Corinne Gaines, who did not wish for a communist horizon, but rather an opportunity to breathe. The alternative cannot solve capitalism because of the exclusive voices of black women while coercing their energies. Racial capitalism does rely on the fetishization of black women as empty signifier of consumption because man maps itself onto women. That was the Brody evidence framework. Begin by asking how much anti-blackness is permissible under the model of debate for the sake of white comfort, legibility, and framework. Our endless pursuit to know what black flesh really means. Our interpretation of the app must oppose nearly all executive power to collect foreign intelligence information, meaning the topic is impossible because foreign intelligence is impossible to define. You can't even talk about surveillance is enough to qualify as foreign surveillance. You have not counter-defined the topic with any evidence, so you can't say that we don't meet. Your ballot is key to deter anti-black debaters from continuing their practices, and reading it on the net requires you to deputize, requires deputizing the blackness that happened in this round. Their interpretation exploits limits because they can talk about any subsection of this topic without defining what those are. It becomes extremely vacuous. Now they take over truth. They've conceded the deputization turn framework is policing. White people try to exercise authority over black people as an extension of slavery, like barbecue Becky calling the cops, which blurs the line between citizen and police officer, demonstrating gratuitous shooting between Rice and Corinne Gaines is not about policies but the social norms that were produced, especially within this period around when Swap was egregiously flippant during the 1NC cross-sex. During 2AC cross-sex, he laughed her off and then said, "I'm just trying to understand the questions better."
Can you extend the Trevor evidence because they begin?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that in just a second. The concessionary ground argument, what's the difference between good ground and bad ground? The fairness arguments, the fairness arguments just don't apply PC if you still get ground. You chose not to go for a policy strategy. The counterplan was definitely competitive with the app. Just because we had great solvency deficits to it did not mean that it's not viable. That's the vision of debate you get to specifically contested. The Traper evidence was completely dropped as well. Actually, the Malaklani evidence was also what was dropped. The topic version of the app cannot address legibility because it's not described these social norms that occur. You change the technologies that occur all the time, which is why the Traper evidence says that starting with the institutions trades off with the possibility of having any kind of activist practices which are necessary to change violence within the world. Procedural fairness does not outweigh the kinds of psychological violence that did already occur.
Okay, we have age 24. Starting. Yeah, I know. Yes. So you can get your stuff then.
I do this. Just the
Um,
argument that they made there.
okay, yeah, you can do some stuff, I'll do some stuff as well. So I have some thoughts as well. Together.
And do you have an answer for this thing?
Yeah. Do you want to write one?
He was disgusting.
Jack, do you want to make?
You trying to tell me about breadsticks? It's so rude. It's so not the spirit of the show.
And also, you didn't offer me one.
I was gonna
What the
ask you
fuck?
next.
Damn.
I was asking everyone.
I would actually, I would like
Yes.
that. Thank you. Appreciate you.
You get two, just because you were offended. Do you want one?
Don't I get two because I was offended?
No. You're gay. You don't care.
That's the patriarchy right there.
That is this one.
Do you want a minute?
Can you move the thing away from me, please?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm a shy.
Oh wow. Yours were strong.
I know. Starbucks mints are really strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. You're really good.
Can you put that down? Because I should that last.
good. It looks nice. You're an artiste.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
I put this argument before this.
Okay, cool. It's gonna be T, the counter plan, the K, the case.
This is like the first time someone has gone for all four of their like positions in the 1MC in the 2 and R. Like usually everything disappears.
I'm going for
I mean, yeah, but
small.
like they literally never like make it this far, you know?
But I'll die
No
before
one ever
then.
makes it to the 2 and R.
Do this.
Okay, is this my cash flow or?
Just switch.
Is it my cash flow?
Yeah, it's weird. I'll just put it like that.
Framework, counter plan, cap, kiss.
Framework, counter plan, cat case. Yes.
Yes, okay, let's go.
Okay, we're good?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Our interpretation is that after you should defend the U.S. FD statutory decision restrictions on the authority of the President of the United States. One of the topic areas, the role of the balance to the defender debating anything else is arbitrary. Replaces the impact debating with link debating, which is worse. Models matter here because that's what the negative is going for. Particular limits are good there. Our prerequisite for in-depth class and iterative testing that is necessary to breed competent advocates because you learn to defend a proposition against a well-prepared opponent in the process of having hundreds of debates with a small area of concentration creates expert advocates who know how to think 3 steps ahead and with fans high levels of scrutiny. Advocacy skills aren't intrinsic good. You can use them to do whatever you like. Be successful in life. Convince academia that they need to change the way they discuss surveillance practice. Persuade people to stop attempting to reform the NSA, or do the opposite. Persuade people to reform the NSA. This outweighs the clash and contestation are inevitable in the real world, no matter what you want to do. But their impact does not move beyond the room framing issue. Our impact is content neutral, but process reliant. That's important because the content debates don't really matter that much. Trophies lose their shine. People leave this activity. You probably can barely remember what the content of round 1 was from this tournament, let alone round 1 2 years ago. What debaters take away from this activity are the skills generated from the model. Frame their offense through this standard. They need to win an intrinsic DA to our model. Just a reason, not just a reason why some debates under our resolution might not be perfect. Line by line. First, all of their offensive arguments are over because they've conceded a ton of framing arguments. 1, debates the game. It does not make truth claims, alter subjectivities, or change material conditions. That's proven by judges voting for arguments they know aren't true. That means our skills impact is prior because it's portable, but also means that their coercion impacts are inevitable due to the other rules of the game, such as there being 2 other sides, speech time, speech order, disclosure, etc. They all engage within all those things. 2, read it and lose. They don't have a valid key claim. Well, they do. That solves literally 100% of their offense because T does not tell them what to do. Rather, it establishes the burden of rejoinder for winning. 3, read it on the neck. They concede the F is a critical neck ground, and reading it every round is not key. That solves all their offense, including the McClellan card, because it proves that our model interrogates policy proposals. 4, the TVA solves. It can be informed by anti-blackness and other radical black epistemologies. This explicitly solves our argument about our model making anti-blackness permissible as, hey, as their McClellan card, because it results in those same discussions that they think are good. They make the argument about how much anti-blackness is okay. We only need to win that the norm of T is not that T is not intrinsically anti-black. This begs the question of the case debate as well. The Gordon evidence proves that reform is not necessarily violent. The perma capitalism proves they don't think it's really true either. Now, we don't need to win that anti-blackness is 100% not ontological. You just need to win unless they win 100% certainty that it's ontological. They can't win this debate. The fact that there's clash there proves that there is a way for half teams to win the debate, which is all we have to prove, that there's contestable ground for the affirmative to be topical. That'll be on the case debate a little bit later. The counter-interpretation argument, they don't make this argument about not counter-defining the words in the stem doesn't, or the plank doesn't make any sense, because we define things like USFG should resolve and statute, etc. Those are all proof that they don't meet those arguments, but the counter-interpretation links hugely to our limits, DA. They can discuss anything tangentially related to nuclear weapons. You can discuss the underpinnings that are undergird things like nuclear weapons trade, anything about Trump related to surveillance, etc. All of these things become entirely impossible to debate because they can use a host and multiplicity of different literature bases that the negative will never have a role for. The policing argument was answered by the framing arguments that were made above, but it's literally not the same thing as policing as much as policing as any other norm within debate, but they're doing those arguments here. They say, vote Africa, swap, laughing, cross-sex. Laughing or being flippant is not anti-blacky answer. He reacted to the statement that Subi could not read other black epistemologies because she did not want to. That is a flippant answer in and of itself. Even if you think that is from something that's not good, that's not a reason that our model debate is bad or that you should vote us down. Our intention was not to be racist, and we apologize. Punishment paradigms are bad for debate and reinforce problematic practices. If anything, make sure swap speak suck, both for not knowing that and not knowing the spelling of the word eyes. The next argument is good versus ground argument distinction. Our argument was not that it's not a ground-based argument. It's simply that still debate is good because we have iterative debates over those same things, which proves our argument. They say we chose not to go for substance. This doesn't matter because it's a debate about what model is better, and especially but the link to the limits here proves that we would never know what we can go for because the one is can pick and choose selectively what to go for. They could have gone for the perm, they could have gone for the solvency deficit, etc. All these things are inevitable, but the only thing to keep the neg in the game is when there is a topical plan. They say the McClonney card. One, we link turn the shit out of the norms-based arguments because of the skills overview that was above. Two, debate does not serve anything but social norms because of my argument about content neutrality. The last argument was about psychic violence, which was a blip in the 2AR. Don't let them blow it up the counterplay.
The treble argument. They are not social advocacy.
The treble argument, they're not a form of social advocacy. Debate doesn't shove any of these things, and the content of our discussions are much better for resulting in those same things. That was overview, that was every other argument. Yes, the counterplay. We answer this argument in a framework the 1AR dropped it. There's no warrant for IT is violent against black women. It doesn't force any specific types of evidence, style, justification. It proves it's not exclusionary. Cross-sex even prove that there are other epistemologies for black women that they could have read that are topical. Regardless, they drop the TV and read on the neg, which means T is not exclusionary and it's game over. They can't say that engaging with the state is violent, so it should be rejected. They advocated a permutation on the cap page that said that seeing the state is a good idea. And if I went for a cap 2AR, cap in the 2AR, the 2AR would have been a great speech about how commensurate it is with the 1AC and the state. Proves they have an incentive to pick and choose strategically, which means you should reject this argument. The capitalism K, conceded permutation, justice, competition, their futurity. Our bad argument is not a reason why we should read topical debating. Our arguments about how this is good background and how there's a contestable debate about it proves that this is not a reason you should just categorically reject us. The case. Their understanding of ontology is flawed. We've made all of our arguments about how it's fixed in the status quo and all social relations are something that is determinate and can be fixed. This is definitively not an AF argument like they're trying to characterize our evidence. Literally, it is the opposite of it. It says there's no fixed social drives. The way that they've characterized the form of fatalism in the 1AC is something as bad. Gordon says that you should reject those arguments. I don't even need to win that it is ontological or the net direction of any of these arguments. So might have a persuasive 2AR in this position. Our argument is simply that unless they win, that is totally 100% ontological, which they cannot win because there's this clash and evidence that is on the other side. It proves that there is a contestable debate and they can advocate for reasons why ontology is fixed on the negative, but they can do the opposite and read things like the Gordon card on the affirmative. The solvency of that case does not matter. They're not going to win a reason why doing something. All the arguments about the Bryan evidence not being about their thing doesn't really matter in this context. We've made solvency precedents proves that there is some level of argumentation to be made.
The TUGA proves even if it's ontological, survival strand apps are TUGA.
Oh yeah, the UGA proves that even if it's ontological, survival strand apps are still topical. We can have those forms of discussions. You don't have to believe anything you say in debate, which is a critical framing issue for all of their arguments.
540 starting.
Right now. What do I do?
I'm gonna go after real quick.
Do you know where DSRB is by any chance?
I'm gonna.
Go ahead.
You want to hear great news, Madison? Since my classes tomorrow all got canceled, I can live stream every round.
All of your classes get canceled tomorrow?
Yeah, every single one.
So not only am I jealous, but I'm sad.
But on Monday, can you also remind me that I have to pack because I'm leaving on Tuesday? Please remind me.
Why don't you set an alarm on your phone?
Because that's gay. Also, today I've said or sent.
Those are really loud guys.
Today I've said or sent. I don't hate you because you're gay because I hate you. I've said it 14 times, including I've been counting.
Count the times you
I've
said it
been
in
counting.
your life too, or just messaging?
No, just today.
Like, did you count it in real life and messaging, or just?
In real life and messaging.
Okay, because you said it to me 3 times, just looking for rooms to switch straight right. Okay, I'm glad we're
I'm glad we're on the same page.
That's good.
So this is a clarification question. You said stay on base good, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes you just can't remember.
I spent around this tournament. Hardly. I spent around this tournament all process. And I was just like, we're gonna redo this fee speech. Just like, what's the clarification? Easy. If I just like took 2 minutes of prep.
What were you debating at this point?
Yeah, no, I was debating JV at this tournament because we didn't have enough people to do open stuff.
Okay, gosh.
Yeah, and the JV's only 2 months, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If we couldn't find a team to stream, we were gonna go try to find like a JV or not this round.
Yeah. We ended up getting a bye 3rd round, so. And then we went 3 but didn't have an opportunity for high speaks.
Nice.
Okay, it's gonna be framework. Can you put the camera back on?
You want? I got you. I got you. You want how much you want to zoomed in?
No, not very. You kidding me? I'm so ugly up close.
What a question.
It's a very real problem. People are like, Dave, you're attractive. They look like 2 feet and they're like that.
Relate. I have no. It's like you walk up close and you're like, wow, your face is busted. That's how I feel every
You
day.
keep saying that. No, it doesn't happen. You're great.
Yeah,
Thank you. You are also great.
Because of these. funny.
I love this in round
I saw Bo's video.
Oh, yeah.
Supported 2 ARs.
Okay, so 2 AR lives matter, you guys. You all. I need to stop. Are you ready, Jack? We're gonna have a little heart to heart. Is everyone ready? Hey, Jack. What is a black female life worth? Is it worth more or less than the skills gained in this round? What is a black woman worth, my guy? I'm gonna prove that we are worth the ballot. Our bodies are always in close proximity to violence because of the scripts that are written onto our bodies. The example we give is one of Corinne Gaines. She was a black radical woman who shared her views on Instagram as well as Facebook because the governing police that viewed her body as a threat. She was brutally murdered in front of her fucking child and on Facebook Live. Our lives are never put on the forefront, even when our violence is live streamed. You should flip your impact calculus and put the black woman and the suturing that needs to happen for us in every single space before the skills that they can give you. Here I give you Ursa and a bus ride. The chaos in her world did not stop her from having these private ambulations on the bus that are key to her fucking survival. What is my survival worth? The question that Nate asks is, how does Subi perform her survival in a way that is net beneficial for the people around her? But I am selfish as fuck. This is about black women and what they need. The question we want you to answer is how much anti-blackness is okay. How much anti-blackness that is like, is it okay to subject to black women in the world of the negative, right? And what does that outweigh our affirmative? Okay, the interpretation of the affirmative means that we must increase resistance in all or nearly all executive power to collect foreign intelligence information. We believe that this creates less like anti-blackness within the world. Also, here's to the role of the negative. We are going to win the link turn arguments to ground and limits if the app has either a narrower or more predictable vision of the topic. You cannot simply explain to us what we lost because every one of their impacts was predicated on this single internal link. The two and us spent 2 seconds on the most important part of the whole argument. The only internal link to skills is clash, but they don't have a coherent internal link to clash or the right type of clash. Our interpretation is the app must oppose all and nearly all. The two and us mischaracterize our interpretation.
Exact.
Yeah. In nearly all, I already said it, to collect foreign intelligence information. The two and are mischaracterize our interpretation. It is impossible to discuss nukes, threats, treaties because the only topic about surveillance. Style debates are accessed through our interpretation because it is the same 702 good bad every round. You don't have to worry about the 4 huge lead bases because our interp only one. Their interpretation will never be about surveillance because you will have any F about executive restrictions. Their interpretation looks like every single F on the cases in Congress or court should restrict the president's authority to insert whatever policy you can think of. You go from 5 topic areas to an unthinkable amount of areas of consider that tips will never discuss anti-blackness because it isn't strategic for them. They will read any new app every single round and throw it at the sheer amount of difference arguments that any permutation of agencies. You get better ground under our interpretation. Surveillance or executive power, politics good, liberalism good. In all their theory arguments are predicated on exec flex rather than the content or the revolution of surveillance, then you're just a bad researcher. They said you cannot constrain to 5 areas of topic. Do you want me to read this?
No, that's...
Okay, never mind. Anyway, we're going to talk about these skills. What are these skills? How do they look like? What do we do with them? Questions that are not fucking answered in the 2 and R. If you can tell me the specific skill that you garner from their debate that we cannot give you, I'll give you $5. I'm kidding. I don't have money. Anyway, but like in the context of this representativeness, these skills, like the skills that they give you are inherently like they're worth a minuscule amount. Sweppers like concludes affirmative. He said, or like the author says that like the USFG will always sabotage whatever you're trying to do and they get you to do whatever they want you to do. In the world of that, like understanding, right? What use are my fucking skills if the USFG is just going to interpolate them? Like the amount of usage that I can get from those skills is absolutely fucking minuscule. Right. Now also they talk specifically, like about debate is a game and only skills is the only thing you can do, but they don't even tell you what those skills are. They don't tell you how to get specifically to those skills. So, deter affirmative because black women are worth it, Oh, deputization. Right. They completely consider this. Or they didn't answer it the right way. They think we're saying policing, but we are not. We're saying deputization. Deputization implicates fairness because it is not what the role of the judge has. It is more important to enforce the rules or refuse to be an overseer. The act is not relying on broad spillover, but the social norms within debate. The slippages that telling me I perform good enough that I and too far from the topic when it comes from white vision of order. You should refer to me as a black woman and prevent yourself from seeing yourself as a rulemaker because the impact of fairness is not big enough. There is spillover to the way you enforce social norms into black women because you will use the same justifications in other debates. Voting off means that you reject to be a deputy, right? Like they are literally like little deputies. They're like, oh, we saw this black woman and she's not on the topic, so you should like not care about her. You should like not give her the ballot. We think that that's fucked up and you should reject to be an overseer. Second, I want to go into this ontology case. We already said that like we don't need to win ontology. It's a question of legibility. And the fact that they have prescribed legible scripts onto my body and what my affirmative should look like is the reason why they it's a turn to a framework, right? Because scripting black women is especially what puts us in closer proximity to violence. Therefore, you should reject not only to make black females in debate legible, you should also vote affirmative because legibility is inherently bad for black women.
Deputization also applies to reading it on the neck.
Yeah, deputization also applies to like reading it on the neck, right?
Because you're voting against you.
Yeah, because you're voting against you. Oh, also,
Yeah,
anyway.
30 seconds.
Anyway, the other thing is, they talk specifically about how I don't have to believe anything that I say is true. This is a form of psychological damage, like psychological torture for like black women where they have to defend like indefensible things, right? Like I think my epistemology is true and you have to prove why specifically it should be excluded from debate, not why why black female lives matter. Thank you.
Good debate.
Great debate, you guys.
Good debate.
You all.
Good
Great
debate.
fucking debate.
Good debate. Good debate. We are guys.
I know, but I want to get out of the fucking habit.
Yeah,
It's just better, you know?
for sure.
I was like, I'll give you $5, but then I was like, I don't have like $1 right now.
You're so
I'm so what?
conditional.
What is explain?
As soon as you want somebody to get you a soda, you're like, I don't got something. I don't have money. But then it's like, you're in the squad room, people are talking about how much they make, and you're like, I got stacks, bitches. What is up?
Exposed right now.
I know! This is anti-black. Black, you should give my partner a 20.
I bought you a soda, like. Okay, it's
Yeah,
okay.
you got finesse.
But it's okay because I offered to
What
buy
we're
it,
telling you is
know?
you just got finessed, Chris.
Are y'all done?
Yes!
Yeah. All right. We get
Yeah.
Okay, no,
starts
I got
by erasing all of this.
That's kind of rude.
I agree.
Can I
No, what the hell? When did that get?
Just put the camera on that. Just
I did say it was kind of
Wait,
rude.
so
and
some
I agree,
art-
It's kind of rude.
It's cute. I like it. I like it.
Undecided.
In the rude sort of way.
It says Jack Manchester. How is that rude? It's a compliment.
Okay, I'm guessing these desks were originally oriented towards this front of the room.
Did we not? We didn't do pictures. That's right.
Which way do you want?
Yay.
We're
Cute.
I know.
I think
This
I
is
know it's cute. I'm out here.
Are you okay with that?
Was it like a circle?
I think it
or
was
it
3 straight lines.
3 straight lines.
I will point it in that direction when it is time.
I'm gonna go wander and ignore it. Sorry, friend. Bow, chicka, wow.
I don't know if you saw my Slack message. I can stream all day tomorrow.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
Your class?
No, they all got canceled. Like today.
Yeah.
I got yeah.
Wait, what got canceled?
My classes all tomorrow just got canceled today. Like
Why?
I don't know. I had 3 classes and I got 3 emails saying classes canceled. So.
If you all could flip those when the time is right.
Yeah.
We're already on like our
Krishna.
turkey break. Like we don't.
No, we're not on turkey break yet.
That sucks. It's like the only good thing that
Oh,
came
sorry.
out of turkey.
How can I?
She my cherry cola. She made me so hungry.
Justin, do you know where DSRB is by any chance? Okay, I'm gonna go wander for a second. But I'll be right back. Oh shit, my phone just died.
I'm gonna check my emails to see if I got class canceled, but everybody else was cool.
Thank you.
Which
If
guy?
the architectural dome can angle the camera towards Jack and Zena.
Mm-hmm.
Or just don't point it towards me, yeah, but that's also fine.
It's not allowed. You're Jack and Manchester.
Oh my god.
Same.
There we go.
Let's try this. Okay, so.
Still? Oh, well, we're done right now. Hi, Mom.
Aw, that's
She really
wholesome.
wanted me to say.
That's wholesome. She'll hear it in about a minute.
Oh my god, my brain is completely done.
Someone on the live stream said, "Whoa, I've heard the judge is a really good driver, but I don't know who it was."
A really good driver? Oh, yeah, because I drive a
Drive a
van.
van,
Yeah,
yeah.
I drive a van, no, it makes sense.
Even though you did drive the van.
Yeah, although I don't. I subjectively don't.
Listen to Taylor Swift though.
Oh, crank Taylor Swift.
Did your mom see it?
Yeah. My grandma thought I lost.
Oh.
Oh,
The fuck is
what?
that?
God.
Oh my god, that is some Ice Age shit right
No,
there.
no, no, no.
I don't
God.
fuck with that.
It's coming
Okay.
straight towards me. I am.
This is literally.
Where did they come from?
What the fuck is that? Sorry, Mom. That Mom's not watching.
You're literally a superhero. You're very good in your work.
This is the spirit of the show, yo. What the fuck is that thing?
Nice. Super well done.
Yeah.
This is a little dinosaur.
We've done this before.
Unfortunately. Oh no.
Oh,
Oh, what the, that's coffee. I thought it was the bug. Holy shit.
I'm pretty
Sorry, Mom.
Let me get the mark.
No, I'm just gonna crush this in here.
Oh, okay.
Fair. You've been disputed.
What?
You've been deseated.
I heard dispute.
You missed the big ass parts I was fine.
I feel like the ones in the squadron.
No, it was literally the biggest one. Like, I'm not fucking. That shit was astronomical.
I'm so afraid. I get the test for my, I mean, that grade for my ethics like tomorrow. At some point. But that's also the one I thought went really well. But also, what if I just was a monster?
I thought my math test went really well, and I got an 83, so I'm sure that assuages your anxiety.
Yeah, thank you. That really helps. Okay, I have the squishy cupcake.
So
Squish
it's
it.
still hyper real.
Squish it.
Still hyper real.
Squish it. I don't know what he did. She ditched me.
How does it make you feel that you're fake friends?
The awards literally are happening in the gym.
Right now.
Right after the video.
There's no one outside though, so yeah. I think there are debates that haven't finished yet.
Why are awards today?
I don't know. They also moved lunch around arbitrarily today. Like it was 10:30 yesterday. Today it was 1:30.
They also started rounds at 7:45.
The grand breaking experiment.
No, the experiment was the streaming thing. With Repco.
You are his type of person.
Stop. The stream is on.
So, you've already talked to this shit. About that same round. You have to erase that or take who's comes from the shadows. No, I'm not gonna erase the stuff from people. It's really annoying.
I know. I want to watch streaming it. I'm gonna live stream it. Can you help read my computer screen?
What's the live stream?
Where's the Deacon records at?
I don't know what it is. It's just the.
Let me just pull it out. Because
I'm
HV and NT don't have an RFD yet.
Okay, but.
So it's just a question.
EW picked up.
He did against Liberty? Who's judging? Oh, that was George.
So I had to take a competitive math test for this seminar that I'm in, and it's out of 100, and I got 1 point.
Can you point the camera?
Okay.
Hello to my girlfriend Brianna Brill. Good luck in law school.
Well,
You're my
wholesome.
rock. That's
Oh,
all.
okay. That was actually kind of cute.
That was ridiculous.
This is like when they like propose at the Super Bowl. That's kind of like what that just was.
I don't think that's what happened.
That's exactly how it went. They were like, "Can we?"
See why I didn't let you alone with it?
That's probably rude. I haven't decided yet. But did you hear what I said? I took a competitive math test that was out of 100 points, and I got 1 point on it. And you think I'm lying?
You got 1 out of 100?
Yes.
I love that. That's so iconic. My little math major.
I think what's worse about it is he says your score was 1. And the next congratulations.
Can I let you?
Hold on, I don't want to put my professor's name in it.
Oh,
That's
okay.
rude.
Okay. I can't stop focusing.
Do y'all wanna?
Wait, so yes or no to being on camera?
Put your accent on camera.
Yes. A Jack Manchester.
Oh, that's a up close and personal shot.
Yeah, it's in.
Okay. Our band Tomasi picked up.
They did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yep.
hell yeah. Yeah, what about HV?
I just exactly as I'm saying. I didn't see it.
Yes.
I saw Sweetie go outside.
All right, fine. She's coming.
HV, 15. Okay, wait, so every week team went at least 5.
Yeah, so we're all in talking
Dope.
This is hot.
Go Deeks. Big peak energy.
Go fucking Deeks. And go Georgia and go Iowa.
But also, go Deeks.
But go Deeks.
Why are we saying go Deeks? I mean, obviously I'm on board.
Because every wake team is at least 5 or
Yeah.
better.
Yes, fucking go Deeks. Spirit of the goddamn Charlotte.
Spirit of the fucking show.
All those words.
Can you make
Ditto.
sure this doesn't fall? Because this is like very.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like move your shit.
You hold the front and I'll hold the back.
Here, oh, that's better.
Yes. Love angles. Your score was 1. Congratulations. I'm gonna screenshot that.
See, if you had a Vincent, that's where you put it. So you don't even use Instagram.
How's life going? Me. You scored 1. Congratulations.
So just general opinion. Too rude that I responded to Tomasi saying we won with a broken clock is right twice a day? Is that too mean to Tomasi? It might be a little too mean to
Fucking
him.
amazing.
That's really funny. I'm actually very happy.
He's gonna have a diss track coming at you.
Oh yeah, it's 100% gonna be on the next album. I can feel it.
You're not a Jack Manchester star.
Not anymore.
No,
Yeah.
I've lost it.
Okay, so great debate, everybody. Really enjoyed watching it. I voted neg, though. I think that the negative wins, in my mind, a decently large risk of their limits DA to the app's interp, and I think that the 1AR and 2AR, while being good at winning what the implication to winning the offensive arguments you've gone for would be, I think are actually a little bit less good / deep on actually winning those offensive arguments that you would need to beat framework, and I think that the negative has won some risk of what I'll call internal link defense of the offense that the 2AR has gone for. So I'm going to start with the neg stuff first. So I do think they win their limits DA. The 2AR push on your interp solves their stuff better was a little bit weird for me for 2 reasons. The first is that I didn't really think that it was grounded super well in the 1AR. Like the 1AR is just not really deep / really there at all on this our interp solves your limit stuff better for all these reasons, which I understand the push then to be like, they don't have a great 2 in our arc for it, but the 1 in R certainly did a great job of winning the internal link args for R interp key to the limit CA. And when the 1AR doesn't have a big press there, I sort of disagree with the characterization in the 2AR then that the 2 in R is required to reinvent the wheel and go super in depth as well. So the combination of those two things, the lack of running in the 1AR and what I thought was an accurate characterization by the negative in the 2 in R is why I think that they certainly have a risk of the limit CA in terms of which interp solves better after the 2AR push. In terms of the impact to it, I sort of actually disagree a little bit with the 2AR characterization that they don't have a good explanation of this, what the sort of skills they get are. I agree that it's amorphous in general in like that sense, but I disagree that that's then a reason they don't have an explanation for what those skills are. I think that their description is somewhat consistent throughout both the 1 in R and the 2 in R. They have the argument that second level argument testing is only possible under their interpretation, and that the discussions that are fostered through second level argument testing are necessary to cultivate our ability to determine the validity of arguments and disprove arguments, which has benefits for our day-to-day interactions because then we as people are just better at parsing through disagreements. That's their arguments that they're making consistently about why their interp has impacts that exist outside the debate space, whereas the affirmative does not, at least that's their argument. So on top of that, in terms of on top of that, meaning that, so I think that they've won the internal link to the limit CA, and I think they do have an explanation of what the impact of that is. There are some framing things that I do think the 1AR has mishandled a little bit. I agree with the 2 in R's characterization that there are things that the 1 in R has clearly established, that there isn't a super great response to in the 1AR, and that the 2AR also doesn't really deal with a whole lot. So the first one that I think is super important is the argument that debate doesn't alter our subjectivities, that debate as an academic game is not where we should be, either should or can determine our subjectivities or influence things of that nature, which sort of functions then implicitly as internal link defense, the sort of psychic violence type arguments that the 2AR is going forward more towards the bottom of the 2AR. It also then functions somewhat as a hedge against the legibility DA, but I think that they have other hedges against that as well. The most important of which I think is the TVA. I understand that clearly the biggest implicit DA to the TVA, although the 2AR doesn't just like say, no, the TVA, here's all of our args, clearly the legibility DA, big DA to their TVA, but they've made args in both the 1 in R and the 2 in R that is arguments as to why you can use your epistemology to inform state action, and they have made the argument that that allows you to use your epistemology and ways that challenge traditional notions of things like legibility as it relates to state action. So I say all this to mean that the 2AR kind of gives the legibility arguments from the presumption that you've just won already the large risk of the DA and have already disproven that the TVA could ever possibly solve them. Whereas I think the 2 in R has arguments for why they could solve them with thus without a bigger sort of 2-hour pushback or hedge against that argument. It's hard for me to just determine that you've won that argument, although if you had, the implication is very clearly won by the 2AR. So I guess that seems like a fine point to start talking about y'all's offense. The main thing is just, like I said, I thought that they have internal link defense arguments for reasons why reading state arguments is not inherently violent, or why voting negative doesn't require the upholding of a violent social norm. The presumption in the 2AR seems to be that these claims that you're making about those things are just capital T true, like you have already won them, which I just, like I said before, I think they have some defensive arguments too. I've already kind of talked about why those framing arguments and TVA sale arguments are what I think they have as hedging arguments against these sort of things. That plus the, yes, Gordon, not a reason why the AF's theory of power is wrong, but certainly a reason why they have challenged the notion that we can't have contingent moments of resistance to things like legibility, etc., which again doesn't require them to win the reformism debate, but rather just requires them to win that there's a way in which we can have these discussions in a productive manner and still include and still focus those discussions at the level of the state. So ultimately what I think is that the neg wins a large risk of their offense, and they have some chance to remedy or hedge against the 2R's offense, where I think the inverse claim couldn't be said about the affirmative. I think that there's not a great arc for you solve their offense after the 2AR, and there's questions in my mind about whether or not you solve it because of the internal link defense stuff that I already talked about. So given that, I think that means I vote negative.
Okay. My question is about the impact to the impact. So talking about discussions better, that seems to be where the conversation ended, right? Clashes, having better conversations.
Well, navigating disagreements interpersonally, etc.
Sure. Why is that a good thing?
Because we have to. We have to, as individuals, navigate disagreements in our interpersonal lives. We can do that more effectively and not have more disagreements if we have better argumentative skills from debate.
what is the impact of having worse kinds of conversations?
That those conversations then either make you uncomfortable, they produce moments of, let's say, psychic violence because you are forced to engage in interactions that are not positive, like any sort of reasons. I guess in my mind, they've said that those things
So
are bad.
implicitly, it's like a link to, or
I don't think it's a link to the psychic violence arguments. I'm just using that language to describe to you why I think those things are bad.
I'm just wondering, like, as of the 2NR, what the impact. I don't disagree with the decision, right? I'm just.
No, that's fine. Like I said, I think the 1NR has all of this impact work that the 1AR does not have defense to.
Okay.
So when the 2NR is like, we've said these things, no press against them, I don't think they have to then re-give the same 3-minute long overview that the 1NR gave.
Okay. The 2NR did gave some examples of the clash, what kinds of things or what kinds of skills that we apply around. I'm just wondering about how we can make our impact better interact with this impact in the future. If we have you in the back, what is it exactly that we're aiming towards? At the end, like once we've had clash or once we've lost clash, what we're losing then, how do we interact with that thing, the thing that comes after the clash, or the thing that comes, what is it good for?
Right, so your arg is that they don't produce the skills to navigate the sorts of disagreements that the 1AC's epistemology says are necessary or that black women have to confront. Your arg is that the skills they develop do not help navigate interpersonal problems for black women. And that's the offensive arg that you can win that outweighs their shit. Because that's where they come short.
Thank you so much for judging.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks. This is a fun one.
Yeah,
It was.
good.
I'm still laughing at the fact that you got clowned on
Yeah,
live stream.
on live stream.
It's a pretty big L.
Thank you. Do you guys have a decision?
AC lost.
Who were they debating?
Michigan State.
They lost?
Yeah, Brown Packers.
Who lost?
Who was judging? Wake AC?
Oh, interesting.
Who was
Yeah,
judging?
Eli Brennan.
Oh, wow.
You said EW on HV. Do we have an RP yet?
Nice.
Easements of cars action.
AC.